Chapter 2268. Im going on behalf of justice. 1. In the assembly hall of the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters, Mo Yen sat calmly at the head of the table, while Leng Xiaoyu stood respectfully behind him in a protective stance. The two of them listened to the second and third elders' heated argument, but they did not stop them. Instead, they chose to let things be. Moreover, looking at the usually high and mighty elders of the Armament Guild headquarters quarreling with each other like street rascals, the two of them felt that it was quite interesting. So, the two of them watched this lively scene with great interest. After a long time, the two groups of people who were quarreling with each other saw that neither of the master and disciple interrupted, and gradually, the voices of the argument became softer and softer until it disappeared. "What's the matter?" Mo Yen smiled faintly. "Have you had enough?" When the second and third elders saw him, they quickly said awkwardly, "He. Your Excellency Mo Yen, Great Elder, President, and Your Excellency Lu Feng are not here, so our Craftsmen's Guild is counting on you to make the decision. Are you sure you want me to make the decision?" Mo Yen raised his eyebrows and asked indifferently. "Of course." The two of them said in unison. "No regrets?" Mo Yen asked again, and the third elder answered very quickly, immediately indicating that he would not regret it. How could he regret it? He couldn't wait to throw this hot potato out as soon as possible. He was not willing to care about anything that involved Leng Ruoxue. However, the second elder was a little hesitant. He mumbled for a long time before he could not help but say, "Sir, Mo Yen is famous for being fair in the Blacksmith Guild. I believe you won't be biased towards anyone." In other words, he had also agreed, but it was a very forced agreement. Hearing this, Mo Yen smiled and said, "You're right, of course he'll be fair." This was good. The second elder was satisfied. He didn't believe that Mo Yen would dare to side with Leng Ruoxue in front of so many people, unless he was not afraid of being drowned by the spittle of the elders. Thinking of this, the second elder's mood relaxed. If this matter went as he wished, he was afraid that the first elder of the Elder Council would have to be replaced. The second elder couldn't help but daydream. Fortunately, no one here knew what he was thinking. Otherwise, he would have laughed his head off. A second elder who had only been in power for a few years, a second elder who didn't have any real power, actually dared to covet the position of the great elder. If that wasn't courting death, what was? In fact, most of the elders in the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters were clear that the second elder was ambitious. Unfortunately, he was slightly lacking in ability. However, the person involved did not feel that he was not capable at all. Instead, he felt that the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters did not give him a chance. Therefore, in the few years that the Great Elder was not in the Craftsmen's Guild headquarters, the second elder had become more and more active. But fortunately, the Great Elder's position in the Craftsmen's Guild was deeply rooted, and most of the elders had been promoted by him and were very loyal to him. In this way, no matter how happy the second elder was, it was impossible to shake the Great Elder's position in the Craftsmen's Guild and the Elders' Guild. Therefore, in the eyes of the elders, it would be difficult for the second elder to replace the Great Elder in this lifetime. Thanks, however, these words were only thought in everyone's hearts. No one would be foolish enough to say it out loud. So, the second elder still didn't know that his thoughts had long been revealed. The second elder saw this incident as an opportunity for him to rise to power, so he actively encouraged the elders to agree to the Yao family's invitation. However, other than the elders who usually wore the same pants as him, the other elders did not approve of participating in this matter. In the words of those elders, their mission was to refine weapons and not to stand out. However, the second elder insisted that they were doing it for justice. The second elder had turned the Elder Council upside down just because he said he was doing it for the sake of justice, and even alerted Mo Yen. Although the third elder did not agree with this, what else could he say? More importantly, Mo Yen had said that he would be fair, so the third elder and the rest did not say anything else. With Mo Yen around, in addition to the relationship between Mo Yen and Leng Ruoxue, they knew that they had nothing to do here. The people on the third elder's side remained silent. The second elder also looked at Mo Yen expectantly, hoping to hear a satisfactory result from his mouth. However, Mo Yen only smiled at them and did not say a word. The second elder immediately became a little anxious. Sir Mo Yen, say something. How should this matter be dealt with? Are we going or not? The second elder asked anxiously. Second elder, you're on the side that agrees to go to the Yao family, right? Mo Yen suddenly asked. Of course. The second elder nodded his head repeatedly, afraid that Mo Yen would misunderstand if he nodded too late. Then, second elder, can you give me a reason why I must go? Mo Yen continued to ask with a smile. Leng Ruoxue has committed a grave crime and has angered the magical beasts. The Divine Master's estate has also put a huge bounty on her head. The reason why the Yao family has invited us to the Yao family's divine territory is to discuss Leng Ruoxue's matter. After all, we're not doing this for ourselves. We're doing this for justice. The second elder said righteously. However, his words made the third elder despise him in his heart. For the sake of justice, my ass. You're clearly doing this for your own selfish reasons. Do you think they're stupid and can't tell? The third elder couldn't help but mutter to himself, his contempt for the second elder growing even deeper. However, now that Mo Yen had made the decision, he would like to see how far the second elder would go. With this thought in mind, the third elder calmed down. When Mo Yen heard the second elder's words, he smiled in agreement and said, Second elder is really a warm-hearted person. After hearing your words, I feel that our Craftsmen's Guild should really do our best for the divine realm. So, after hearing this, the second elder and third elder couldn't help but stare at Mo Yen even more intently. At this time, Mo Yen heard a poochie sound and teased, Second elder, third elder, you'll misunderstand if you keep looking at me like this. The two of them blushed immediately when they heard that. Seeing them like this, Mo Yen laughed even more happily. As if he had forgotten what he was going to say next, the second elder was so anxious that his face and ears turned red. Mr. Mo Yen, you haven't finished, have you? The second elder warned. Yes, I didn't finish. Actually, second elder should know what I wanted to say, right? Mo Yen said, pretending to be mysterious. What? The second elder blinked his eyes in confusion. What the hell did he know? He wasn't a worm in Mo Yan's stomach, so how could he know what that guy was trying to say? However, he still made a bold guess. Sir Mo Yen, do you mean that we should accept the Yao family's invitation? Chapter 2269. I'm going on behalf of justice, too. That's right. Since the Yao family has sent out an invitation, if we don't go, the head of the Yao family will definitely bear a grudge, so we'd better go. The Yao family's god territory isn't far from the Blacksmith's Guild headquarters anyway. Mo Yen said with a faint smile. Not far away? When the third elder heard this, he couldn't help but laugh in his heart. His Excellency Mo Yen must be being sarcastic. The Yao family's divine territory was quite a distance away from the Craftsmen's Guild. If a reverent god used all his strength to teleport, it would take at least half a month. If he relied on a flying beast, it would probably be more than a month later when he arrived at the Yao family's divine realm. By then, it would be too late. After thinking about it, he had to admit that Mo Yan's idea was good, but only Mo Yen would be so sure to accept the Yao family's invitation, he would never dare to say it. Otherwise, the hot-tempered first elder would not let him off. The second elder was also very happy to hear this. No matter what, his wish had finally been achieved. This time, he had to seize the opportunity and fight for a higher position. However, when he thought about the location of the Yao family's divine territory, he was a little conflicted. The Yao family's divine territory was too far away from here. However, this opportunity to take down the Great Elder was too rare, so he was not willing to let it go. Just go far away. For the sake of his own future, he had to accept it. The second elder was both happy and at a loss. At this moment, one of the elders suddenly asked, Mr. Mo Yen, are we really going to send people to the Yao family's god domain? The person who spoke was an elder who supported third elder. He had only asked this question because he had received third elder's gaze. However, when Mo Yen heard his question, he could not help but frown and pretend to be angry. Am I not clear enough? Of course we're going. We are all doing this for justice. Therefore we can't stay out of this. That's right. The second elder quickly chimed in. Mr. Mo Yen, it's not that I'm against going to the Yao family's god domain, but you've been in closed-door cultivation, so you don't know what the situation is like in the Yao family's god domain. The elder who had spoken glanced at the second elder before speaking with a calm expression. Could it be that there's some inside story that I don't know? Hearing this, Mo Yan's curiosity was piqued. Upon seeing this, the elder who spoke quickly described the Yao family as the source of the infection, adding oil to the fire. After hearing this, Mo Yan's face immediately darkened, and then he said angrily, "That damned Yao family, what are they up to? Is he trying to lure us over so that he can catch us all in one fell swoop?" After he finished speaking, many elders' shoulders started to tremble. It looked like they were frightened, but in fact, they were holding back their laughter. Combined with what Mo Yen had just said, this scene seemed quite reasonable. Even the second elder thought that the timid elders were frightened. Therefore, he quickly explained, "Sir Mo Yen, although there were such rumors in the Yao family's divine realm before, it was a long time ago. I believe that the Yao family is safe now. Otherwise, how would the head of the Yao family dare to invite us over? You must know that we're not the only family he invited." Second elder's words aren't without reason. However, out of consideration for our safety, I think we should be more careful on this matter. After all, this concerns the safety of the people heading to the Yao family's divine realm. We can't be careless. The third elder interjected. Seeing that third elder didn't go against him this time, second elder naturally wouldn't make a ruckus at him like a cockfight. Moreover, third elder was thinking about his safety, so second elder felt that he had to show his cautious side. Otherwise, he was afraid that he would incur the public's anger. Thinking of this, the second elder added, "As far as I know, the Alchemist Guild headquarters has also received the Yao family's invitation. So, if you really don't feel at ease, we can go with them. This way, the safety will also be greatly increased." How did you know that the Alchemist Guild would accept the invitation and head to the Yao clan's divine realm? The third elder asked helplessly. Wasn't this second elder taking things for granted? This is a matter of justice. How could the Alchemist Guild possibly refuse? The second elder said matter-of-factly. Hearing this, Mo Yen was a little speechless. He had overestimated the second elder's intelligence. However, since he had decided to go, he naturally couldn't undermine second elder's position. Therefore, he took the initiative to give second elder a way out and said, "Leave the matters of the Alchemist Guild to me, I'll go and negotiate with them. However, you should also send someone to the Yao family to check on the situation. If the infection is too serious, we have to consider the consequences." As soon as Mo Yen finished speaking, the second elder said impatiently, "I'll personally investigate the Yao family." The 8 great divine regions and some major forces had set up branches here, so it was very easy to go and ask. The second elder was very willing to do such a worry-free and labor-saving job, but in reality he was just trying to cheat. The elders present were well aware that this was just a formality. If they were to ask the Yao family, how could they possibly tell them that their own divine realm was indeed still infected? How stupid would they be? In that case, let's end the meeting here. We'll discuss it later. After Mo Yen finished speaking, he left with Leng Xiaoyu and left the Craftsman's Guild. The Blacksmith's Guild headquarters and the Alchemist Guild headquarters had always been inseparable and complemented each other, so their headquarters were naturally not too far away. After Mo Yen and Leng Xiaoyu left the Blacksmith's Guild headquarters, they went straight to the Alchemist Guild headquarters. When they arrived at the Alchemist Guild headquarters, Mo Yen originally wanted to see Luiyue, but the waiter told him that both Sir Luiyue and Sir Shen Nuo were not around. In the end, it was Jiang Ning who received them with a bitter expression. Jiang Ning was precisely one of the 3 vice presidents of the Alchemist Guild headquarters, and also the only vice president who was currently still overseeing the Alchemist Guild headquarters. In the living room of the Alchemist Guild headquarters, Mo Yen looked at the resentful Jiang Ning. Other than being speechless, he really didn't know what else to say. Who was this guy making an expression of a resentful wife for? Those who didn't know would think that she had bullied him. But in all honesty, he really didn't do anything. The look in Jiang Ning's eyes made Mo Yen feel extremely uneasy. Even Leng Xiaoyu felt her hair stand on end. This gaze was really too. Both master and disciple couldn't take it anymore. However, they still pretended to be calm, as if nothing had happened. After a long time, Jiang Ning glared at Leng Xiaoyu resentfully and finally opened his mouth to ask, "That Leng Ruoxue is your descendant?" Yes, I am." Even though Leng Xiaoyu didn't know what Jiang Ning meant by his question, she still answered him honestly. In reality, her relationship with Leng Ruoxue wasn't a secret anymore, whether it was in the Blacksmith Guild or the Alchemist Guild. As for the outside world, it wouldn't be long before they found out. Especially now that Leng Ruoxue's name was known throughout the firmament, all 8 generations of the Leng family's ancestors would probably be dug out. Chapter 2270. I'm going on behalf of justice, 3. You still dare to admit it? Hearing Leng Xiaoyu's affirmative answer, Jiang Ning's tone suddenly turned vicious. Jiang Ning was silent. If he didn't admit it, was he going to deny it? Shuai was the pride of the Leng family. How could he not acknowledge her? However, Leng Xiaoyu had already decided that before she knew what Jiang Ning's intentions were, as long as he didn't point out her name, she would remain silent. Furthermore, he couldn't understand how Shuai had offended Jiang Ning. The two of them didn't seem to have much interaction, right? However, Shuai, that little girl, was someone who would not pay for angering people to death. So, if the two of them really had a grudge, it seemed quite normal. With this in mind, he did not dare to interrupt. Even though he didn't say anything, Mo Yen was still interested in the conflict between Leng Ruoxue and Jiang Ning. It could be considered that there was a conflict between the two of them, right? As he thought of this, he suddenly asked with a curious look, "You know Shuai?" In fact, he wanted to ask Jiang Ning about the conflict between them directly. However, he was afraid that Jiang Ning wouldn't tell him. So, he had to ask in a more indirect way. "I don't know him," Jiang Ning said honestly. Mo Yen was speechless. "If you don't know her, why do you look like you're going to eat her up?" When Leng Xiaoyu heard his answer, she was speechless. It was rumored that the Alchemist Guild's vice president, Jiang Ning, never played by the rules, and it was indeed true. Otherwise, why would he have such a huge grudge against Shuai before he even met her? However, Leng Xiaoyu was relieved to hear that Jiang Ning did not know Shuai, who asked Jiang Ning to be publicly acknowledged as the most difficult to deal with out of the 3 vice presidents of the Alchemist Guild headquarters. Furthermore, this fellow was extremely willful. Even if he was refining pills for others, he would still choose the person. There was no way he could ask him to refine pills to save people he didn't like. So basically, in the Alchemist Guild headquarters, he was also the one the outside world didn't dare to provoke the most. However, she angered me. Looking at the silent master and disciple, Jiang Ning added, "What did that girl do to piss you off?" Hearing this, Mo Yen quickly asked. Leng Xiaoyu also looked at him curiously. "She seduced 2 of our Alchemist Guild's vice guild leaders. Since the end of the elite gathering, those 2 guys haven't returned, causing me to be like a dead dog, working like a horse in the Alchemist Guild. This was all her fault. That's why I won't let her off. I heard that she has a lot of good things. I must make her compensate for my mental loss. Otherwise, I'm not done with her." Jiang Ning replied fiercely, but his bright eyes were shining as if he had caught a long-term meal ticket, which made Mo Yen and his disciple even more speechless. This guy was probably not looking for trouble but wanting Shuai's good things? Moreover, your Alchemist Guild's main guild's vice president isn't a baby. They have hands and feet and are unwilling to return, so how can you blame it on Shuai? Mo Yen couldn't help but mutter to himself. Leng Xiaoyu's impression of Jiang Ning had also changed greatly. In the past, he had always thought that Jiang Ning was hard to get close to. But now, he understood that this guy was clearly a rascal. If he wanted to take Shuai's baby, he should have just said so. He really despised Jiang Ning from the bottom of his heart. The master and disciple were secretly discussing this, which made Jiang Ning a little anxious. Why didn't the two of them react at all after he said so much and revealed his purpose? This wasn't normal. Although he really hoped that the two of them would stand on his side and speak up for him, he knew that the possibility was very small. However, they shouldn't be so unresponsive. As such, he did not know how to continue the topic. Actually, my clan's first elder and vice guild leader Lu Feng haven't returned for a long time. After a long while, under Jiang Ning's intense gaze, Mo Yen had no choice but to force himself to speak. Since that's the case, let's go find Leng Ruoxue to settle our scores. Let her compensate us for our mental losses. Sigh. I've been so tired recently. Jiang Ning said pitifully. Exhausted? He was probably exhausted not because of his work at the Alchemist Guild headquarters, but because he wanted to earn money. As everyone knew, the Alchemist Guild headquarters was the richest of the few large guilds. After all, the gods didn't need to refine weapons every day, but they needed to use medicinal pills almost every day. Therefore, the Alchemist Guild headquarters had already earned a pot full of money from selling medicinal pills. Thanks, and Jiang Ning was definitely not after Shui Er's money. He was probably after her precious herbs. After all, alchemists were all fanatical about herbs. Even the extremely rich Jiang Ning couldn't avoid falling into a fanatical state for heavenly treasures. However, he was doing this all for the sake of refining pills. As a weapon refiner, Mo Yen understood Jiang Ning's feelings very well. When it came to ingredients, alchemists and weapon refiners were the same. Furthermore, in his opinion, if Shui could befriend Jiang Ning, it would not be a good thing for her. After all, Jiang Ning's status in the divine realm could not be underestimated. From a certain aspect, he was more powerful than Shenhua and Luiyue. I heard that Shui is in the Yao family's divine realm. Our blacksmith guild is thinking of going there. Why don't we go together? Mo Yen asked after thinking for a while. This was also the purpose of his visit today. Sure, I'm also going to the Yao family's god domain. However, can you be sure that Leng Ruoxue is really there? Jiang Ning asked worriedly. Although he could contact Luiyue and Shenhua, a few days ago, Shenhua had cut off all contact with them as soon as she said that she wanted to go into closed-door cultivation. As a result, he couldn't find her even if he wanted to. However, he didn't expect Mo Yen to come out of closed-door cultivation and bring Leng Ruoxue's ancestor with him. If that was the case, it should be easier for him to find Leng Ruoxue if he was with them. Furthermore, the reason he wanted to meet Leng Ruoxue wasn't solely for the herbs. He was also very interested in her as a person. After all, to be able to make several big shots of the Alchemist and Tool Masters Guild treat her differently at the same time, such a person was rare even in the immortal realm, let alone the fact that the other party was only a little girl. She was also the only one among the 3 vice guild leaders of the Alchemist Guild who had never seen her before. This was something that the prideful him would never allow. Hence, he had to use this opportunity to see Leng Ruoxue alive. I'm not sure, but I'll definitely go to the Yao family's divine realm. I also want to know what the Yao family's intentions are. What does that old man from the Yao family want to do with Shui? Mo Yen told the truth. After he came out of his closed-door cultivation, he did not immediately contact Leng Ruoxue and the others. Right now, he wanted to go to the Yao family to take a look. More importantly, he knew that the girl was not someone who liked to be passive and get beaten up. Hence, he was not worried about the safety of Leng Ruoxue and the others. What other intentions could there be? They definitely don't have any good intentions. Jiang Ning said with a look of disdain. A person who had been famous for so many years actually gathered to discuss a little girl's matter. He had no shame. Aren't you afraid of being laughed at? In this regard, Jiang Ning looked down on his actions. However, there was no harm in listening. He then asked, as long as I follow you guys, I'll definitely be able to see Leng Ruoxue, right? Mo Yen nodded helplessly. Hearing this, Jiang Ning was relieved. He smiled evilly and said, then I'll be with you guys for the time being. Hearing this, Leng Xiaoyu couldn't help but feel sad for Shui Er's herb that was about to pass away. However, she knew that Jiang Ning knew his limits and would not rob Shui Er too badly. However, he was so worried that he had forgotten that Lung Ruoxue was not someone who could be robbed so easily. In Lung Ruoxue's words, she was the only one who would rob others in this world. If others wanted to rob her, they had to see if she was happy or not. If she was happy, they could do whatever they wanted. If she was not happy, there was no way they could rob her. In contrast to Lung Xiaoyu's worry, Mo Yen was not worried at all. If Jiang Ning could snatch the herbs from Shuer, then it would be his own ability. Therefore, he asked about the Yao family's poisoning situation without any worry. Only after Jiang Ning patted his chest and assured him that it was no big deal did Mo Yen feel at ease. In fact, Jiang Ning had been paying attention to the Yao family's poisoning incident. He knew that it was completely directed at the Yao family, so he wasn't worried that he and the others would be poisoned as well. After all, weren't the Qi, Yu, and Fan families, who had been staying in the Yao family's divine domain, fine? Seeing that he had achieved his goal, Mo Yen quickly left the Alchemist Guild headquarters with Lung Xiaoyu. After returning to the Craftsman's Guild, Mo Yen immediately gathered all the elders, including the second elder who was a guest at the Yao family branch. After all the elders had arrived, Mo Yen made it clear that he was going to the Yao family's divine realm. The second elder couldn't help but be happy. After that, Mo Yen asked the elders to discuss the candidates to head to the Yao family's divine realm. In the end, it was decided that he would be the one to lead the team. He would bring Lung Xiaoyu, the second elder, and the others to the Yao family's divine realm. Initially, when they were discussing whether Lung Xiaoyu should stay or leave, the group led by second elder was strongly against it. The reason was that Lung Xiaoyu was Lung Ruoxue's ancestor and their relationship was too close, so they had to avoid it. However, Lung Xiaoyu said, "I'm going on behalf of justice." The second elder was rendered speechless. Just like that, Lung Xiaoyu followed her master to the Yao clan's divine realm without any hesitation. Some of the teams heading to the Yao family's divine territory were walking slowly, while others were rushing to the Yao family's divine territory. However, Lung Ruoxue, who was focused on developing the antidote for the 7 crystal flower, did not know about this. However, even if she knew, she wouldn't care too much. After all, in her opinion, she couldn't avoid what was to come. Since that was the case, she could only let nature take its course. Chapter 2271. The Defeated Master of Justice, 1. Lung Ruoxue, who liked to let nature take its course, stayed in the pill refining room in her house with Shen Nuo and Lu Yue. They thought of all sorts of ideas day and night and thought of countless plans. However, none of them were able to cure the symptoms of the 7 crystal flower. Other than coming out of her house occasionally to feed the 7 crystal flower the pills she had concocted, she basically never left the house. As for how to feed it, she had to put the pill into the flower pot. In order to facilitate absorption, she had deliberately ground the pill, which should have been solid, into powder. However, even so, the effect of those pills on the 7 crystal flower was not very good. Seeing this, she could only continue to work hard. But before that, she had to think of a way to comfort the little fox who loved to cry. Because every time that little guy saw her come out of the house, he would be elated and excited, but not long after, his eyes would be filled with tears and he would look pitiful. And she had no choice but to promise that she would definitely find a way to cure the 7 crystal flower. Seeing how hard it was for Shuer, the evildoer's heart ached. However, he knew Shuer very well. He knew that since she had promised the little fox, she would not give up halfway. So, he could only hold back the resentment in his heart and support Shuer. However, the pressure at the bottom of the cliff was getting lower and lower. This guy's aura is getting stronger. The great elder sighed as he looked at the monster from afar. Dongfang Yu and the others could only smile bitterly when they heard this. They already knew the identity of the monster. They had almost no other feelings except shock. And that Song AI. The few of them kept sighing, deeply feeling their own insignificance. Seeing them like this, First Elder couldn't help but tease, "Calm down. You'll get used to it, but you must be very disappointed now, right?" Dongfang Yu didn't know how to react when he heard this. Were they disappointed? It did seem like it. After all, they used to be all-powerful in the immortal realm, but now, It was a long story. Where did Master Ning go? Dongfang Yu also sighed and changed the topic. He couldn't let the Great Elder continue on this topic. Otherwise, that chatterbox Great Elder would definitely force them into a corner. That old man actually went to the verdant fir waterfall for a scenic tour. You didn't even bring me along. The Grand Elder couldn't help but grumble. First Elder, can I say that we can't see the light of day? Dongfang Yu sighed and said, What do you mean we can't be seen in the light? Our current identities are his Ning family's guards, but he went out to play and didn't call us. This is really preposterous. This old man is too disloyal. The more the First Elder spoke, the angrier he became. In the end, his resentment soared to the sky. We weren't by his side at that time. He can't possibly come here to call us. Besides, we still have to stay here to protect Shuer. Dongfang Lin couldn't help but speak up for Master Ning. It's enough for Shuer to have the protection of me and that demonic man. Suddenly, Song, who wasn't afraid of blowing things up, interjected with a smile. Seeing it speak, Dongfang Yu and the others all mourned for Master Ning in their hearts. Then, they all tactfully closed their mouths. As if they had found a backer, the Great Elder excitedly said, That's right. He can at least ask us. We'll talk about it another time. In short, he's in the wrong if he doesn't ask. Dongfang Yu and the others looked at each other, but no one was willing to answer. Far away at the verdant fir waterfall, the master of the Ning family couldn't help but sneeze a few times. He muttered to himself, Could he be sick? Or was Shuer talking about him? Thanks at this time, the head of the Cheng family walked to his side with a face full of concern and asked, Old man Ning, what's wrong? Could it be that you've done something wrong, so you're being scolded? Of course, Master Cheng's words were just a joke, but he had hit the nail on the head. However, how could Master Ning admit that he was being scolded? I'm sick, he said with a serious face. Sick? The head of the Cheng family was a little dumbfounded. He had only heard of gods being injured, but he had never heard of any god saying that he was sick. However, Master Ning's words made those who had heard it and those who hadn't all gather around. Of course, those who had heard it were basically the Ning family, and those who hadn't heard it saw that Master Ning was surrounded, so they came to join in the fun out of curiosity. Seeing this, Master Ning had a headache. However, the seventh elder of the Ning family was very nervous. He asked with a worried expression, Master, are you not feeling well? Why don't we go back to the inn first? I'm fine. I just sneezed a few times. Don't make such a big fuss. Hearing this, Master Ning's head hurt even more. How good would it be if Shuer was here? Didn't they say that a daughter was a father's little cotton jacket? With Shuer around, she would definitely be able to comfort him. The master of the Ning family thought happily. Wanna leave? There's no way? Suddenly, a discordant voice sounded out of thin air. When everyone heard it, they looked at each other and saw the big question marks in each other's eyes. Only then did they unwillingly turn their heads and look in the direction of the voice. Then, the master of the Ning family and the others saw that they were surrounded. Furthermore, it was from several different forces. This was definitely someone looking for trouble with them. Seeing this, the master of the Ning family couldn't help but raise his eyebrows and ask with a faint smile, What do you want? Is this a robbery? Here comes the troublemaker. Just as well he was bored. We don't rob. When the leader of one of the forces heard this, he almost stumbled and fell to the ground. They were the masters of justice. How could they be here to rob? To them, these words were a great humiliation. Then you want to ask for directions? The master of the Ning family guessed, pretending to be confused. When the others heard his words, they laughed in their hearts. They didn't expect the master of the Ning family to be so good at pretending to be confused. However, when the forces surrounding them heard this, they were so angry that their faces turned green. Damn it! We're not here to ask for directions. One of the opponents couldn't help but shout. This is not it, that is also not it, then you must be lost. Otherwise, he's on an outing like us. However, we've already occupied this place, so you'll have to move to another place. The master of the Ning family glanced at the other party and said to himself, You bastard! The people of those forces were almost driven crazy by the words of the master of the Ning family. They didn't know what the difference was between asking for directions and getting lost. Moreover, wasn't this person a little too much? At this time, they didn't know that they were facing the masters of the 7 great divine regions. After all, although these forces were the first to arrive, their status in the divine world wasn't high. Naturally, it was impossible for them to have the opportunity to meet a big shot like the master of the Ning family. Otherwise, they wouldn't dare to show off in front of the master of the Ning family. And now, without anyone knowing, the few groups of Wuha who had joined forces were now in a great momentum. Chapter 2272, The Defeated Master of Justice 2. Cut the crap. We are here to kill Leng Ruoxue. Hurry up and hand Leng Ruoxue over. Someone from the opposing faction shouted. They really didn't want to listen to this old man's nonsense anymore, so they simply told him their purpose. However, when the master of the Chung family and the others heard this, cold sweat trickled down their backs. Oh my God! These people were really gutsy. They actually dared to say that they wanted to kill Leng Ruoxue in front of the overprotective old man Ning. This was great. They would definitely leave before Leng Ruoxue. They were well aware of this. Then, Master Chung looked at Master Ning with worry and excitement. They were worried because they were afraid that old man Ning's temper would go out of control and he would vent his anger on innocent people, which were them. He was excited because there was a fight. It was just that these people's strength was really not enough, so while the head of the Chung family was excited, he was also somewhat uninterested. What a contradiction! The head of the Chung family felt that he was simply a complex of contradictions. However, what he wanted to know more was why these people were looking for Leng Ruoxue. Thinking up to this point, the Chung clan's head gave old man Ning, who was on the verge of exploding, a comforting look without a change in his expression. Then, with a calm and composed face, he asked, "If you guys want to kill Leng Ruoxue, shouldn't you go to the land of demons? Why did he come to the Green Fir Waterfall? This is the Yao clan's sacred tourist spot in the divine realm. There's no Leng Ruoxue here. Who are you trying to fool? Do you think we're stupid? Who in the God world doesn't know that Leng Ruoxue is hiding at the verdant fir waterfall?" The Cheng clan's clan head's words caused the powers that wanted to kill Leng Ruoxue to look down on him. They looked at him as if they were looking at an idiot. Hearing this, the head of the Cheng family was deeply worried. Why didn't anyone believe him when he told the truth? In reality, the other forces did not believe the Chung clan's clan head's words because they were eager to make a contribution. After all, they were the first group to arrive at this place because they had the geographical advantage. Hence, they had to continue to expand this advantage. Otherwise, when the other forces arrived one after another, they would not have the chance to kill Leng Ruoxue first. It had to be said that they were a group of hot-headed and hot-blooded people. Unfortunately, they were a little greedy. Did you just say that everyone in the God world knows that Leng Ruoxue is hiding at the Green Fir Waterfall? Suddenly, Master Ning looked at the man who had just spoken and asked indifferently. Of course. This was no longer a secret in the immortal realm. All of you, Leng Ruoxue's accomplices, quickly hand Leng Ruoxue over. Otherwise, don't blame us for not being polite. The more that person spoke, the more excited he became. Meanwhile, the sympathy that the head of the Chung clan and the others felt for him was like a torrential river, unending. This person was really stupid. Wrong, it should be said that it was not an ordinary two. It was very, very stupid. How can you be so sure that we are in cahoots with Leng Ruoxue? What if I say that we are here to kill her too? The master of the Ning family was still smiling and asked calmly. This is impossible. Other than us, no one else can be the first to arrive at the verdant fir waterfall. Furthermore, from your attire, you can't possibly be from the Yao clan. So, you're definitely in cahoots with Leng Ruoxue. The man said with certainty. It had to be said that he had a good eye. Of course, it could also be a blind cat meeting a dead mouse, purely a wild guess. After saying this, he pointed at the few women in Master Ning's team and roared fiercely, "Leng Ruoxue, if you don't want these people to be implicated by you, then take the initiative to come out and court death. We promise not to touch the others. As long as you cooperate. Thanks. There were a total of 5 women who were called out. They belonged to the Yin family, the Fan family, and the Yu family. After hearing this, a woman from the Yin clan couldn't help but say angrily, Lung Ruoxue isn't here. You found the wrong person. This is impossible. You guys are the most suspicious. Lung Ruoxue must be one of you. The man was obviously very stubborn. The women were so angry that their faces turned red. If it wasn't for the fact that their ancestors didn't give any orders, they really wanted to rush up and teach this guy a good lesson. It was fine if he had bad eyesight, but he didn't listen to anyone's advice. What the hell was this? Furthermore, they couldn't understand how this person was so sure that Lung Ruoxue would be one of the 5 of them. I say, you guys are really mistaken. Lung Ruoxue is really not here. Seeing that the atmosphere was a little tense, the head of the Chung family hurriedly said, Do you think we're that easy to fool? Lung Ruoxue must have put on a disguise and mixed in with these women. If you hand the 5 of them over to me, I'll let you live. How about it? The man continued. He said it as if it was a matter of course, as if the other party would definitely do as they said. These words made the head of the Chung family silent. Forget it. In any case, those few little girls weren't from their Chung family, so had just let the other 3 guys have a headache. Ancestor. After the 5 women heard the other party's words, they all looked worriedly at their own family head. They had come out to gain experience, not to be killed. Moreover, they weren't Lung Ruoxue. Not only would they not receive the reward for killing them, but it would also bring shame to their family clan. Therefore, they were naturally unwilling. They weren't the only ones who weren't willing. The 3 family heads wouldn't allow this to happen either. Otherwise, how could they survive in the divine realm in the future? Therefore, not long after that person finished speaking, he was immediately kicked out by the angry Yu family head. With a loud bang, the man who had been kicked fell heavily to the ground and fainted. However, the head of the Yu family was not satisfied with this and set his sights on the few people closest to him. When the few of them saw his unfriendly gaze, they were so scared that their legs turned to jelly. One of them even couldn't help but shout, He's in cahoots with Lung Ruoxue. Brothers, let's attack together and kill him. The Ning family's master and the others were speechless. Even the Yu family's master twitched his mouth. Was this considered framing? Even though he admired Lung Ruoxue, he was unwilling to be framed by an insignificant ant. Furthermore, ever since the Yu family had become one of the 8 great divine regions, his temper had grown. Hence, the person who had shouted those words naturally met with a tragedy. Following that, the head of the Yu family started to take care of those fellows who did not have good judgment. Seeing this, the head of the Chung family didn't forget to cheer him on. Little Yu, you can do it. Good luck. Hearing this, Master Yes' mouth twitched even more. Little Yu? Could she not call him that? Although he was much younger than the others, he didn't want to be called Little Yu. The head of the Yu family protested in his heart. However, he also knew that the head of the Chung family had always been willful and reckless, so he didn't bother to correct him. His only wish was that the head of the Chung family wouldn't call him that when there were many people around. However, it was obvious that this wish could only become an impossible dream. Chapter 2273, The Defeated Master of Justice, 3, AI. Sighing deeply, the Yu family head's attacks became even heavier. If he couldn't beat up the head of the Chung family, wouldn't it be a piece of cake to take care of a few thieves? In less than half an hour, the few forces that had come to encircle and annihilate them in high spirits were all taken care of by the furious Yu family head alone. The other party was simply too weak, and no one else was interested in making a move. Therefore they happily watched. Glancing at his opponent, who was lying on the ground in a semi-unconscious state and covered in wounds, the master of the Chung family sighed and said, You dare to kill Lung Ruoxue with your abilities? If it weren't for little Yes' kindness and didn't take your lives, would you still be alive? No one dared to refute his words. Now, we'll give you a chance, Clan Master Ching said. You have to be honest. Who said that Lung Ruoxue was at Qingshan Waterfall? We're not sure either. This news should have come from the Yao family's divine realm. The entire divine realm already knew about it. Moreover, many forces are heading this way. We're the first to arrive because we're closer. One of the people who was called out by the Chung clan head's gaze trembled and stammered as he truthfully spoke. The Yao family's god domain? It looks like this news is directed at us. It's not Leng Ruoxue. The head of the Chung clan sneered. When the other family heads heard this, their expressions became serious. Only the Ning family head was sure that this news was related to the old man of the Yao family. The old man couldn't do anything to them, so he wanted to use other forces to give them trouble. He didn't think that the old man of the Yao family would want to use other forces to get rid of them. Unless the Master God came in person, the other forces probably didn't have the ability. Of course, if all the forces worked together to defeat them one by one, it was not entirely impossible. However, would the other factions be so united as to fulfill the wishes of the Yao family's old man? Now, the master of the Ning family wasn't too sure. After all, with these lessons learned, it was enough to make them vigilant. After some thought, the master of the Ning family looked at the other masters and put on a serious expression. Since this news is directed at us, I think we should end our trip here. Are we just going to go back like this? If that damn thing from the Yao family were to find out about this, wouldn't we become the laughingstock of the Yao family? After hearing Master Ning's words, Master Cheng exploded. He didn't want to make a fool of himself in front of old man Yao. Who said we're going back? We won't go back, but we have to let the others go back to the Yao family's main city first so that we can do whatever we want, right? The head of the Ning family comforted them with a smile. He didn't believe that the major forces would dare to go to the Yao family's main city to kill the people of the 7 families. Not only that, the Yao family had to think of ways to protect the members of their families. Otherwise, if there was any damage, it would be an offense to the 7 families. He believed that the stingy head of the Yao family would never do such a loss-making business. Yes, that makes sense. These words made the head of the Chung family smile. However, those who were still sober among the forces who also heard these words felt a little sympathy for the forces that were about to arrive. Another unlucky fellow like them was going to die. Why didn't they realize earlier that these people were not to be trifled with? Now, they had become the other party's prisoners, and they didn't know how they would be treated. When they thought of the unknown future, they were terrified. In fact, they were overthinking it. In the eyes of the Ning family master and the others, they were just some ants that had no value at all. Therefore, after hearing the words of the Ning family master, they were all dumbfounded. Did they hear wrong? Was the other party really letting them leave? Seeing their disbelieving expressions, Master Ning couldn't help but sneer. What's wrong? Do you think we will kill you? You're nothing but a bunch of ants. Killing you will only taint our reputation. So, hurry up and get lost. Do you want us to send you on your way? We will leave now. As soon as the leaders of the forces heard this, they knew that the other party really wanted to let them go. So, they supported each other and ran away from this place. After they left, it was the turn of the other family members to leave. Although they were unwilling to leave, they did not dare to disobey the orders of the family head. Moreover, they also knew that they might drag the family head down if they stayed here. Therefore, although they were reluctant to leave, they did not drag it out. After most of the people left, only the Ning family's master and the other 7 people remained at the verdant fir waterfall. Naturally, they stayed behind to wait for their prey. On the other side, the representatives of the Blacksmith Guild and Alchemist Guild were already on their way to the Yao family's divine realm. However, they were moving at a slow and steady pace. Thanks seeing the speed of their advance so slow, the Armament Guild headquarters, Second Elder was somewhat unable to bear it. In a moment of impulse, he ran in front of Mo Yen and Jiang Ning, the 2 team leaders, and shouted, "What kind of speed is this? At this speed, it would be too late to reach the Yao clan's divine realm. What's there to discuss? Second Elder, do you think that the Yao family head won't wait for us to start the discussion first? If that's the case, what's the point of going or not? Why don't we go back?" Jiang Ning blinked his eyes and said indifferently, "It's good to go back. Our families are so far away from the Yao family's divine realm. We won't be able to get there in a short time. So, we should send a message to the Yao family and tell them not to wait for us. Yes, Mo Yen replied. Before they set off, the Yao family branch knew that they had agreed to go to the Yao family's divine realm. The head of the Yao family must have received the news and was waiting for them, so Mo Yen really didn't know why the second elder was so anxious. However, it was reasonable for the second elder to be anxious. However, they were not in a hurry. No, we can't go back. How can we not keep our word? Since we've already informed the Yao family, we can't go back on our word. The second elder said anxiously. Of course we don't want to break our promise, but, second elder, didn't you say that we're walking too slowly? Jiang Ning said helplessly. He's too slow. It's been a few days, but we've only gone through one city. At this speed, won't we reach the Yao clan's divine realm by next year? The second elder couldn't help but complain. What can we do? Flying beasts are slow to begin with. Moreover, they had to rest, so they couldn't speed up even if they wanted to. Unless the second elder sacrifices himself and teleports us away. However, we have quite a number of people, and the second elder will have to make a few more trips. Jiang Ning suggested as he looked at the second elder with a smile. When the second elder heard this suggestion, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. With such a long distance, was teleportation something a human could do? If he brought these people along, he would be exhausted to death. Therefore, he shook his head without any hesitation. There was no way he could do something that no one else was willing to do. Then we can only fly slowly. Seeing this, Jiang Ning shrugged his shoulders and said innocently. When the second elder heard this result, he had no other choice but to grit his teeth and admit defeat. However, from then on, everyone in the team could always see the second elder's dark face. Seeing this, everyone tactfully stayed away from the second elder, a time bomb that could explode at any time. At the same time, the master of the Ning family and several other masters had been waiting at the verdant fir waterfall for a few days. Finally, another group of people had come to die. However, it was obvious that some of these people had seen the master of the Ning family before and had sent a message to their companions in time. Therefore, when those people saw the master of the Ning family, their faces all showed a shocked expression, and there was a trace of fear in their eyes. Master Ning, why are you here? Someone asked in a trembling voice. The person who spoke was the person in charge of the operation at No. 1 Middle School. He was one of the few people in the team who had the honor of meeting the family masters. However, the first person he saw was the master of the Ning family, so his words were naturally directed at him. However, as soon as he finished speaking, he saw the master of the Chung family and the others hidden behind a huge tree from the corner of his eye. Suddenly, his scalp began to go numb, and half of his face twitched violently. What day is it today? Why did so many patriarchs of the 8 divine regions appear at the same time? He was depressed and had a headache. It seemed like it was impossible for him to deal with Lung Ruoxue today. After all, everyone knew about Lung Ruoxue's relationship with Master Ning. From what he saw today, Master Ning was here to support Lung Ruoxue. Because he knew very well that other than the master of the Ning family, no one else had such a strong appeal. Actually, knowing the relationship between Lung Ruoxue and Master Ning, they still dared to gather to deal with Lung Ruoxue. It was a risk. However, for the sake of the huge reward, many people would rather take a chance and participate in this matter. This was because they felt that they were on the side of justice, while Lung Ruoxue had provoked the public's anger. As the saying goes, the law is not responsible for heavy things. Hence, they felt that it was no big deal even if they participated in the encirclement and suppression of Lung Ruoxue. It was impossible for the master of the Ning family to become enemies with the entire God world just for Lung Ruoxue. But now, he didn't dare to continue to think so. Chapter 2274, Chance of Survival, 1. Looking at Master Ning's expression, it was obvious that he wanted to stand up for Lung Ruoxue. The man frowned and thought to himself. At the same time, he was very nervous. In fact, he was still very afraid of the master of the Ning family. Unfortunately, the reward of the divine master's estate was too tempting for them. Wasn't there a saying that men die for wealth, birds die for food? Their current state was exactly like this. They were obviously very afraid, but they still wanted to stand up for themselves in the name of justice. And this daydream had always been very good before he met the master of the Ning family. Even after meeting the master of the Ning family, his heart still contained a trace of luck. Seeing that the master of the Ning family didn't respond to him, the man took a deep breath and asked again, Master Ning, why are you here? What's wrong? I can't be here? I heard that you're here for my daughter, so of course I have to stay here and meet you righteous masters. Master Ning raised his eyebrows and said coldly. Most of the people who heard his words broke out in a cold sweat. When the person who spoke heard this, he laughed bitterly in his heart. It was just as he had guessed, but he was not willing to make a wasted trip, so he mustered up his courage and said, Master Ning, we have no grudges with Lung Ruoxue. The reason we want to deal with her is for the safety of the divinity. So, I hope you can understand. The safety of the divine realm? What does my daughter have to do with the safety of the divine realm? Moreover, if I'm not mistaken, are you saying that the divine realm will be safe once I've dealt with my precious daughter? The master of the Ning family was so angry that he laughed and asked curiously. Almost. Lung Ruoxue is now known as the great demon in the firmament. Her existence is definitely a great threat to the firmament. That's why we have answered the call of the God Lord's estate to take her down before she's fully grown. Only then will the firmament be able to return to its former peace. Master Ning, you're the leader of the 8 divine regions. I think you'll understand what we're doing for the safety of the divine world, right? The man laid out the facts and tried to reason with a serious expression. In the end, he didn't forget to use the status of the Ning family's master and the Ning family's status to speak. When the head of the Chung clan heard this, he couldn't help but hold his forehead. Moreover, the extremely sympathetic gaze he gave to the person who spoke made the person who spoke feel uncomfortable. The man muttered to himself, I've only said a few words of truth, so why is the head of the Chung family looking at me like that? This made him very depressed. And what he had wanted to hear the most was Master Ning's attitude, but because of Master Ning's silence, he had not heard it. After a long while, the master of the Ning family said with a smile, Little guy, you're mistaken. Our Ning family isn't the leader of the 8 great divine regions. The Yao family was the leader of the 8 divine regions. So, don't try to reason with me. I only know that whoever wants to bully my precious daughter is going against me. Bullshit about the divine realm's safety. If the divine realm's safety can only be exchanged with my daughter's safety, then it's better for the divine realm to always be safe. After the master of the Ning family finished speaking with a faint smile, he rushed to the person who had spoken at lightning speed and beat him up while muttering, You bastard! You dare to call my daughter a devil? You're the devil. Your whole family is a devil. The person who was hit didn't react in time and was knocked unconscious after a few hits. The master of the Ning family became angrier the more he spoke. The words of this person just now kept echoing in his mind, so he didn't hold back at all when he beat the person. Not long after, the other party was beaten until he was covered in wounds and blood, and his original appearance was almost unrecognizable. It was really tragic. You guys saw it. This is called, trouble comes from the mouth. The head of the Chung clan laughed exaggeratedly at this scene. Thanks when the people present heard his laughter, they all suppressed their fear and sighed in their hearts. This person was really too much, actually taking pleasure in others' misfortune. However, they only dared to think about it in their hearts and did not dare to say it out loud. They looked at the master of the Ning family with deep fear. Who's next? Who wants to test my fist? The master of the Ning family received the other party's gaze and raised his bloodied fist. He asked indifferently, but he couldn't help but think in his heart that the feeling of punching people with his fist was really good. The feeling of punching flesh was very real and very satisfying. No wonder someone liked it so much. That someone, in his heart was, of course, a demon. When the people present heard this, They couldn't help but take a big step back. The expression on their faces became more and more frightened, and their legs began to tremble. At this moment, they really couldn't escape even if they wanted to. Her weak legs refused to listen to her. However, the master of the Chung family was quite excited to hear Master Ning's words. He asked curiously, "Is it fun to punch people? You'll know when you try it." Hearing this, the master of the Ning family raised his eyebrows again and said with an evil smile, Then I'll try it myself." As soon as he finished speaking, he grabbed the unlucky guy closest to him. In the next second, his fist, which was as fast as the wind, landed on the other party's face with a bang. The head of the Chung family knew very well that the person he had beaten up was also one of the people in charge of this team, and he wanted to kill the chicken to warn the monkeys. In fact, the actions of the Chung clan's head this time had quite a big effect. The beating of the last person had already sounded the alarm for everyone, but this time, it deepened the fear in their hearts, especially when they saw the other 5 people's eager looks. The righteous master, who had come for justice, even wanted to cry to death. Isn't this bullying? You can't bully people like this." The 2 people in charge had been beaten up one after another. For the others, it was easy to imagine how much pressure they were under. At this time, almost everyone was hoping that someone would raise their arms and call for help, pointing them in the right direction. Unfortunately, no one dared to step out. It could be said that no one had the ability to step out. At this moment, they were so scared that they wanted to run away, but their legs were already weak. They could only open their eyes wide in fear and look pitifully at Master Ning and the others. Especially when the Ning family head's icy blade-like eyes swept over them, they all trembled like little chicks that had just come out of their shells, and then slowly curled up into a ball and tightly huddled together. Seeing them like this, the master of the Ning family couldn't help but laugh. He pointed at them and said to the master of the Chung family, "Look at them now, it's as if we did something to them. What a bunch of useless cowards. How dare they cause trouble for my daughter? My Schwer can send them back to their hometown with one finger." He really overestimates himself. The Ning family head's words were half mocking, and the other half was also for the Chung family head and the others to hear. Although these masters didn't shout to kill his daughter like these people, he knew that he didn't ask them for their thoughts. For people of their status, some words didn't need to be too straightforward, so the master of the Ning family knew that these people would understand his meaning. Chapter 2275, Chance of Survival, 2. Sure enough, the head of the Chung family was the first to say, "That's right, don't you see whose goddaughter that little girl is? These people don't even dare to give face to old man Ning, aren't they just here to die? Why don't we leave these people for Schwerer to deal with?" Master Ning really thought about Master Cheng's suggestion seriously, but he soon shook his head and said with a look of disgust, "These people are too weak. Schwerer won't take a fancy to them. Then what do we do?" The head of the Chung family also asked in disdain, "Do you guys want to stay and wait for death, or do you want to get lost?" The master of the Ning family asked coldly. These people were just small fries who were being used. There was no point in killing them. He was too lazy to beat them up. Therefore, he kindly gave them 2 choices. Of course, he would not let them go without a reason. If they wanted to leave, they had to pay a price. Get lost. They'll get lost." Hearing this, someone immediately said, "W'll also get lost." Someone else said, "Good. Since you want to get lost, I will naturally give you a chance. However, you can't just get lost for nothing. In the future, if there is any sign of trouble in the divine world, you must come and inform me. If you dare to not tell me and let me find out later, none of you will be able to live. Do you hear me?" After the master of the Ning family finished speaking, his dark eyes swept around, as if he wanted to remember the faces of all the people present in his heart. Those people were so scared that they nodded repeatedly. Then, without waiting for the master of the Ning family's order, those people rolled and crawled away from this place. Letting them go just like that is really letting them off too lightly. After they fled, the head of the Chung clan couldn't help but say with a regretful expression, "What? You still want to make him stay?" The master of the Ning family asked with a smile, "How is that possible? Our Cheng family doesn't support idle people. The patriarch of the Cheng clan hurriedly denied it. Don't keep idle people? Don't you have a lot of idlers in your Cheng family? The master of the Ning family raised his eyebrows. Ah! The head of the Cheng family was rendered speechless by these words. He admitted that there were indeed a lot of idlers in the Cheng family, but they were all his descendants. He couldn't just drive them out. Seeing the Cheng family master being defeated, the others all laughed unkindly. On the other hand, the Ning family master said calmly, "I've already driven out some unfilial descendants of the Ning family." These words shocked Master Cheng and the others. They all stared at Master Ning, and after a long time, they asked in unison, "What do you mean by that?" "It's the literal meaning." The master of the Ning family said indifferently, as if he was talking about someone else's family. "Thanks, he's really been driven out?" The head of the Cheng clan was stunned for a moment before he confirmed with a look of disbelief. "Do you think I would joke about this? I'm only telling you this to inform you that in the future, when you hear someone from the Ning family talking big in the divine world, remember to ask me if that person is still a member of the Ning family." The master of the Ning family said seriously, "Is it because of that last Leng Ruoxue?" After a long time, the head of the Cheng clan couldn't help but guess. Shuer has a different place in my heart. I truly treat her as my daughter, so if anyone dares to bully my daughter or say anything bad about her, I won't let it go." When the master of the Ning family said this, his aura suddenly rose and he said fiercely. His words also caused some of the family heads present who did not understand the deep relationship between Leng Ruoxue and Master Ning to reconsider Leng Ruoxue's position in their hearts. In contrast to them, the head of the Cheng clan sighed endlessly. He did not expect that old man Ning would go to this extent for Leng Ruoxue. It seemed that he had to deal with the disharmony in the Cheng family as soon as possible. After all, he still wanted to maintain a good relationship with the Ning family. He also valued that girl Leng Ruoxue. It had to be said that the master of the Cheng family was very smart. Furthermore, he did not hit someone when they were down. Other than giving face to the master of the Ning family, a large part of it was also because Leng Ruoxue was the savior of the Cheng family. Furthermore, he also valued Leng Ruoxue very much. With all these factors added up, he naturally did not want to make an enemy out of Leng Ruoxue and the Ning family. As for the rumors from the outside world, he had never believed them. After all, he was not a fool. Could he not judge who was right and who was wrong? In this short exchange, the family masters were even more clear about Leng Ruoxue's position in the heart of the Ning family master. The Ning family master was someone they definitely did not want to provoke. Therefore, they were smart enough not to mention their opinions on the matters involving Leng Ruoxue. However, it was also impossible for them to offend the divine world estate and openly support Leng Ruoxue. Thus, on this matter, the Lu family, Yu family, Qi family, and Fan family all decided to remain neutral and not offend anyone. Even though Master Cheng and Master Yin had the same thoughts, they felt that Leng Ruoxue was closer to them. Hence, unless Leng Ruoxue didn't need their help, they would remain neutral. If Leng Ruoxue needed their support, they would stand on her side. However, what they did not expect was that after the battle at the Verdant Fir waterfall, they had already been assigned to Leng Ruoxue's side by most of the forces in the divinity. This was definitely beyond their expectations. Of course, this was a story for later. After this exchange, the relationship between the 7 family heads became more harmonious. However, out of playfulness, the 7 family heads still decided to stay at the Green Fir waterfall and wait for their prey. In the next few days, they really did wait for a few troops of justice who came excitedly but left in disappointment. When those masters of justice first faced them, they were all valiant and spirited, as if they had sacrificed their lives and spilled their blood for justice, as if they had done something great. But when the two sides really met, there was no need for anyone else to do anything. The master of the Ning family could deal with them alone. And these people's fate was naturally the same as the previous teams. They were all required to report to him if there was any sign of trouble. Otherwise, they would bear the consequences. After sending off groups of people who had come in the name of justice, The head of the Ning family and the others finally got tired of waiting for their prey to appear. So, the 7 heads of the Ning family returned to the main city of the Yao family in high spirits. When the head of the Yao family heard the news, he was so angry that he almost vomited blood. He had gone to great lengths to spread the news that Leng Ruoxue was in the Yao clan's divine territory and had successfully attracted many teams. However, those teams were completely useless. The moment they heard Master Ning's name, they were so scared that they peed their pants. Therefore, after doing so much, not only did he not hurt the 7 of them, he had even sent many of Master Ning's underlings to report the news. This fact really made him depressed no matter how he thought about it. What made him even angrier was that not only did the Divine Master's estate not send anyone over, not even a single member of the beast race had come to encircle and annihilate Leng Ruoxue. Only the people of Wuhe who could not achieve anything great had come. He could not understand such an outcome. Chapter 2276, Chance of Survival, 3. What was the difference? The head of the Yao clan paced back and forth in his study like a trapped beast, while the Grand Elder lowered his head, not daring to say a word. Why are those people so useless? They all cowered when they saw that damned old man from the Ning family. The head of the Yao family muttered as he walked, his face filled with indignation. In fact, he was madly jealous because he knew that he definitely didn't have that kind of power. Not only he didn't have it, but the family heads of any of the 8 great divine regions didn't have that kind of prestige. Master, the old man from the Ning family has been famous for a long time. It's normal for him to have some deterrence in the divinity. So, please don't be angry anymore. If it were you, those people would definitely run away faster than rabbits when they see you. The first elder of the Yao family, who still had a lingering fear, thought for a while and thought of a way to comfort him. Although the head of the Yao family knew that he was flattering him, he really needed this kind of flattery at this moment, so he was very happy to hear it. Seeing that his master's expression had improved, the first elder continued, "Patriarch, since things have come to this, you shouldn't be angry. Those people were weak to begin with. When we led them to the verdant fir waterfall, we hoped that they would join forces, but who knew that someone would know those old things and didn't dare to make a move? This result is beyond our expectations." The great elder of the Yao family sighed in regret. In fact, when they had spread the news that Leng Ruoxue was at the Qingshan waterfall, they had only hoped that they could fish in troubled waters. Who knew that the waters were not chaotic enough? They did not fish in troubled waters, and the Divine Master's estate did not send anyone over. Instead, they had allowed those old fogies to get their fill of beating people up. Just thinking about it made him feel vexed. Of course, he did not dare to say these words now. Otherwise, wouldn't the family head, who had just been appeased a little, flare up again? "Master, when all the forces we've invited have arrived, if Master Ning still wants to protect Leng Ruoxue, he'll definitely be criticized by everyone. By then, it'll be a good opportunity to take care of them. Therefore, please calm down and wait patiently, Patriarch." The Yao clan's first elder continued. "You're right. By the way, did the beasts not send back any news?" The head of the Yao family nodded and asked. This time, the Yao family had invited quite a number of major powers. Some had replied, while some had no news at all. However, what made him the happiest was that the Armament Guild headquarters and the Alchemist Guild headquarters had both sent people over. When he found out about this news, he was already grinning from ear to ear. And now, what he was most concerned about was the reaction of the beast race. After all, the beast race was very powerful. "Family head, there's no news from the 4 divine beast kings. Should I urge them to hurry?" The first elder hurriedly said. "No need. You just need to let someone tell them that the Alchemist Guild's Vice President Jiang Ning will also be coming." The head of the Yao family smiled and said confidently, "The Beast clan could ignore their Yao family and the Armament Guild headquarters, but they could not ignore the Alchemist Guild headquarters because the need for medicinal pills for beasts was definitely not less than that of humans. And this time, the arrival of Jiang Ning could be said to be his biggest surprise. As long as he could win over Jiang Ning and get him to stand on his side, Would he have to worry about the other forces turning to Leng Ruoxue and the Ning family? As the head of the Yao family thought of this, his mood suddenly brightened up. In the end, the entire Yao family heard a burst of arrogant laughter, and all the members of the Yao family were in a good mood. Song, who had been brazenly monitoring the Yao family's every move, heard the echo of laughter in his ears. The corners of his mouth twitched slightly, revealing a meaningful smile. Then Lil Fire, who had been summoned by him, immediately ran over to him. After whispering a few words to Xiaohua, Xiaohua left the bottom of the cliff with his subordinates. The next day, the news of the Yao family elders' disappearance once again spread, and this news made the head of the Yao family extremely furious. Through his divine sense, he looked at the Yao family's head who was stomping in anger and couldn't help but think in his heart, now you know what is called extreme joy begets sorrow, right? Let you be proud. Azure happily wagged his long tail. His mood was great. When the demon saw this, he only looked deeply at Song but did not say anything. Suddenly, the door of the house on the open ground opened. Evil and Cold saw it and quickly pounced over. Leng Ruoxue, who had just stepped out of the courtyard, was hugged by the demon. Song unceremoniously laid between the two of them, vowing to carry out his duty as a third wheel to the end. Seeing this scene, the people present were used to it and did what they had to do. Leng Ruoxue smiled helplessly. Then, she took out a transparent jade bottle and said, "We've developed a new type of nutrient solution. I plan to give it a try on the 7-crystal flower." Upon hearing this, the little fox hurriedly jumped onto Leng Ruoxue's shoulder. Her eyes were fixed on the liquid in the jade bottle, and her face was filled with anticipation. Thanks, the transparent liquid in the jade bottle had a faint pink color. It looked like a pink diamond in the bottle, shining with a charming luster. When the crowd saw this, they all walked forward in shock and admired the beautiful liquid in Leng Ruoxue's hands. When Leng Ruoxue opened the bottle, everyone immediately smelled a refreshing fragrance. Instantly, everyone's spirits were lifted. This is good stuff. Uncle Yen couldn't help but take a few deep breaths and sigh. Please say, "You don't need to tell me that." When Song heard this, he said in an unpleasant tone, "Ah." The choked Uncle Yen blinked his eyes in embarrassment and didn't dare to make a sound. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue left the evildoer's embrace and walked towards the 7-crystal flower. She poured the pink liquid from the jade bottle onto the huge flower. Although there was only one drop of the pink liquid, it was very sticky. The 7-crystal flower took about 10 minutes to absorb all the liquid. Then, everyone's eyes were fixed on the 7-crystal flower, not even daring to blink. They really hoped to see a miracle happen. After all, Shuo, that little girl, had been feeding the 7-crystal flower quite a lot of good things in the past few days. Any one of them would be priceless. Who knew how many good treasures were in this little bit of liquid? Everyone thought to themselves with some heartache. Thus, they sincerely hoped that the 7-crystal flower would be able to recover this time. Unfortunately, to everyone's disappointment, the 7-crystal flower still looked the same after a long time. AI. The crowd sighed and left the territory of the 7-crystal flower. Leng Ruoxue, on the other hand, did not leave. Instead, she continued to observe the 7-crystal flower, which did not seem to be getting any better. In fact, this time, she was very confident in the nutrient solution that she, Shen Nuo, and Lu Yue had developed. Although she was not sure if it could restore the 7-crystal flower to its original state, it was not to the extent that there were no changes at all. Leng Ruoxue could not understand. When the demon saw this, he did not say anything and stayed by Leng Ruoxue's side. After a long time, Leng Ruoxue suddenly grabbed onto the evildoer's arm and whispered with a nervous expression, "Demon, look at the pistil of the 7-crystal flower. Isn't it different from before?" She wasn't too sure and didn't dare to speak too loudly. Otherwise, if everyone was attracted and there were no changes, wouldn't she disappoint everyone again? Thus, she could only ask the evildoer secretly. After listening to Leng Ruoxue's words, the demon inspected it seriously and said with certainty, "It seems to have more vitality than before, but it's not obvious and almost invisible." "That's right. Demon, I'm going back to continue researching this nutrient solution." After Leng Ruoxue finished speaking, she left in a hurry. Song and the little fox also heard Leng Ruoxue's words. The two little beasts naturally stared at the 7 crystal flowers pistol and studied it. After confirming it, the little fox was so excited that tears filled its eyes. It couldn't help but burst into tears. When the great elder and the others heard the crying, they hurriedly ran over to comfort the crying little fox. As for the evil-minded Song and Demon, they had no intention of explaining that the little fox wasn't crying because she was sad, and let everyone fill in the blanks on their own. Everyone mumbled as they racked their brains for words to comfort the little fox. They did not dare to speak too harshly, but they had to be very reserved. So after a round of comfort, they were already covered in sweat. This made them deeply feel that comforting people was really physical work. In the end, the little fox finally stopped crying. However, as it was less intelligent, it forgot to tell everyone that it was not sad, but happy. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue, who had already returned to the pill refining room, told Shen Nuo and Lu Yue, who were still in the midst of their experiments, about the results of her careful observations. The two of them saw that the nutrient solution had some effect on the 7 crystals flower, so they suggested that Leng Ruoxue increase the dosage. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she hurriedly nodded and the three of them got back to work. Half a month later, through Leng Ruoxue's repeated experiments, adjusting the ratio of the nutrient solution and feeding the 7 crystal flower a nutrient solution every 3 days, the 7 crystal flower finally regained its vitality. Chapter 2277. A good show is on one. Seeing the 7 crystals flower getting better day by day, Leng Ruoxue and the others were very happy. However, Leng Ruoxue was thinking that her, Shen Nuo, and Lu Yu's hard work had not been in vain. On the other hand, the others were thinking that they finally did not have to use various precious medicinal herbs for their experiments anymore. This was because the medicinal herbs used to create the 7 crystals flower's nutrient solution were all fixed. There were only 5 types. However, when they thought of those 5 medicinal herbs, everyone's heart still ached. It was because each of the 5 medicinal ingredients was a priceless heavenly treasure. For example, the dragon's beard grass, the fish scale flower, and so on. Any one of them would cause countless people to go crazy, especially Shen Nuo and Lu Yue, who were both alchemists. Although they knew that Leng Ruoxue had many precious heavenly treasures in her hands, their eyes were still shining and their hearts were beating fast. In the end, Leng Ruoxue promised to give them a portion of each of the 5 herbs. Only then did the two of them forcefully suppress their thoughts of keeping the herbs. From this, it could be seen how attractive good herbs were to alchemists. In reality, for the sake of precious natural treasures, the two of them could not wait to sell themselves to Leng Ruoxue. Right now, even though the two of them did not say it explicitly, they had been lazing around at her place all day long. Therefore, it was almost equivalent to selling themselves. However, Leng Ruoxue didn't mind their little schemes. In her eyes, these two people's characters were trustworthy. They were also important figures in the divine world. Being on good terms with them would only bring her benefits and no harm. Moreover, these two people had rich experience in alchemy. Therefore, if she had anything she did not understand, she could ask them for advice. She basically had all the medicinal pills they needed for alchemy. Therefore, this was beneficial to both sides. During this period of time, the three of them had been busy with the matter of the 7 crystal flower. As a result, the relationship between the three of them had rapidly warmed up. Now, they were both teachers and friends, and their relationship was even stronger than before. Through the trio's hard work, the 7 crystal flower's condition improved day by day. Its vitality was also slowly recovering. Right now, although the 7 crystal flower's petals had yet to fully recover, the few petals closest to the heart of the flower had already recovered very well. They had become bright and fresh, as if they had just bloomed. Leng Ruoxue and the rest were also shocked to discover that the petals of the 7 crystal flower were actually dark red in color, and not the black color that they had always thought. This fact surprised Leng Ruoxue and the others. Now, there were people surrounding the 7 crystal flower almost every day, curiously watching its recovery. Who asked the 7 crystal flower to change every day? Especially the little fox, after knowing that the 7 crystal flower was gradually recovering, it had been guarding the 7 crystal flower closely and would not leave no matter what. On a certain day, as usual, Lung Ruoxue fed the 7 crystal flower the nutrient solution. Just as she was about to turn around and leave, she suddenly heard a soft, "Thank you." 2 words. These 2 words shocked Lung Ruoxue. Then, she lifted her beautiful eyes to search but could not find the person who had spoken. This made her feel puzzled. "It's me." Another soft sigh was heard and Lung Ruoxue suddenly came to her senses. "You're the one talking?" Lung Ruoxue asked as she looked at the 7 crystal flower's flower pot. Furthermore, she saw that the flower pot seemed to be shyly trembling. However, it was not trembling too much, so she was not too sure. The 7 crystal flower spoke? Did the ancestor speak? Upon hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, everyone and the little fox looked at Lung Ruoxue in unison and said in unison, "Thanks, can't you guys hear me?" Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked with uncertainty. Everyone and the little fox shook their heads in unison. "They can't hear me," the voice said. "I'm sending you a message. My body is still very weak, so I can't really speak." "I see." Lung Ruoxue nodded. Then, she glanced at the curious crowd and the eager little fox. She smiled and said, "The 7 crystal flower sent me a voice transmission. However, its body is still too weak, so it can't speak for now." "That's great." Seeing that their ancestor was finally awake, the little fox was so excited that she was about to cry again. Dongfang Yu and the others were so frightened that they hurriedly coaxed her. When this little fellow cried, it would definitely cause the mountains to collapse and the earth to crack. It would be too horrible to look at. Moreover, once it started to pour, it would really be like a mountain flood that could not be stopped. They were very experienced in this. Therefore, when they saw that the little fox was about to cry, they wanted to kill this possibility in the cradle. Seeing the crowd coaxing the little fox, Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but snicker to herself. It seemed like everyone had been frightened by this little fellow who loved to cry. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue, who was secretly happy, was suddenly pulled into a pair of strong arms. The owner of the arms said with a matter-of-fact expression, "Shuo, the 7 crystal flower is getting better by the day. Do you have time to spend with me?" During this period of time, he had almost become a wife-gazing rock. Every day, he would stretch out his neck just to wait for the short moment when Shuer came out. So, no matter what, he had to fight for the chance to have Shuer all to himself. The 7 crystal flower isn't completely healed yet. Lung Ruoxue said softly. Of course, she wanted to accompany the evildoer. However, she had promised him that she would find a way to cure the 7 crystal flower. Hence, she really did not want to give up halfway. However, when the demon heard this, he said in an overbearing manner, "Don't we still have Shen Nuo and Luiyue? They'll be in charge of the nutrient fluids production from now on. You're being requisitioned by me." Ah! Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Why did his words sound so? However, although the demon's idea was good, it was too difficult to realize. Not to mention the others, Songdu would not let him succeed. As soon as the evildoer's voice fell, a white light whizzed to the side of the 2 people. Then, the owner of the white light said in a fierce voice, "Nyo doesn't belong to you alone. What right do you have to commandeer her?" The white light that spoke was precisely Tsong. Because other than him, no one else dared to say these words. "It's not just mine?" The demon narrowed his dark eyes dangerously and said in an extremely unfriendly tone, "Of course." Azure puffed out her chest and looked straight at the demon without fear. "Are you looking to die?" When a demon was angry, the consequences would be very serious. "Well, talk if you can kill me." It was a direct provocation. As soon as they heard this, everyone knew that the man and the beast were going to fight again. So, they very tactfully picked up the little fox and left the place where the tragedy was about to happen. However, the little fox's face was full of excitement. It was obvious that she wanted to watch a good show. Seeing this, everyone was quite helpless. Other than crying, this little fox had another hobby. She liked to watch others fight. So I really don't know how it developed this hobby. Anyway, as long as there are people fighting, it will be extremely excited, and sometimes even throw the sadness to the back of its mind. I really don't know who it got such a gossiping from. Chapter 2278. A good show is on, too. However, at this moment, everyone's only thought was that they could not become cannon fodder. Therefore, the great elder tactfully covered the excited little fox's eyes and carried it far away. In an instant, other than the huge 7-crystal flower that had yet to fully recover, there was only Lung Ruoxue, the raging evildoer, and Song. However, this man and beast did not act as everyone had expected. They did not start a fight immediately. Instead, they turned their gazes towards Lung Ruoxue. The devilish eyes were deep and aggrieved, filled with resentment. Song's dark and clear eyes were filled with pity. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxue had a headache. Was this man and beast trying to act pitiful? Lung Ruoxue was not afraid of them fighting. He was most afraid of them being like this. She couldn't handle it. Since he couldn't handle it, he could only play dumb. Therefore, Lung Ruoxue also looked at them with an innocent expression. Wasn't it just a competition of pitifulness and innocence? She would not lose either, Lung Ruoxue thought to herself. After a long time, the two humans and one beast who had been staring at each other for a long time could not help but laugh helplessly. This time, evildoer and Songdu didn't get any advantage. The winner was Lung Ruoxue. Seeing them bury the hatchet with a smile, Lung Ruoxue's heart, which had been in her throat, could finally be at ease. Then, she wiped the cold sweat off her forehead and thought to herself, that was close. AI. Shui is getting more and more cunning. Glancing at Lung Ruoxue, who had clearly heaved a sigh of relief, the demon said with a face full of hidden bitterness. Isn't that so? Azure agreed, not going against Demon's words. After saying this, Song and evildoer glanced at each other and sighed. Seeing them like this, Lung Ruoxue finally could not hold back her laughter. Were these two guys trying to make him happy? Even though they would not admit it, Lung Ruoxue knew that even if they were to really fight, this man and beast would definitely have a sense of propriety. Thus, Lung Ruoxue was happy to cooperate with them. But now, these two people seemed to have the intention of joining forces. As expected, the moment she thought of that, the man and the beast pounced towards Lung Ruoxue. Following that, a white light flashed and the two of them disappeared. He glanced at the place where the two people and the beast had been, and the first elder who was hiding in the corner. He then turned to look at Shenhua and Liwei, patted their shoulders, and said, I'll leave the treatment of the 7-crystal flower to you guys. Yes, that girl Shui has increased our workload. I wonder if we can ask her for overtime pay? After thinking for a while, Shenhua could not help but ask. If you can get it, I'll support you. The first elder said with an evil smile. Who would have thought that after hearing these words, Shenhua would actually give up? After that, he was openly despised by the first elder and the rest, and without any complaints, he took up the responsibility of taking care of the 7-crystal flower. Thanks at this moment, Lung Ruoxue and the demon were brought into the God Protection Pagoda by Tsang. Tsang, why did you bring us into the God Protecting Pagoda? Lung Ruoxue asked in confusion. If I don't bring you to the God Protecting Tower, do you want me to watch you enter the broken bracelet? Song Chi snorted. This was called the first to strike is the best. Otherwise, once the two of them entered the broken bracelet, it could only watch helplessly. Who asked it not to enter? However, the words broken bracelet deeply provoked the little one. Following which, Lung Ruoxue and the demon heard a furious voice ring out beside them. Damn it, you're the broken bracelet. Your whole family is made of broken bracelets. I'm not a bracelet. When Azure heard this, he said in a calm manner. You damn tower. Qing Ju said, unwilling to be outdone. Although he was not at his peak condition yet, and even if he was at his peak condition, he might not be able to defeat this broken tower, but he was definitely not afraid of it. That was why he dared to challenge Song. However, what made him most unhappy was that he couldn't leave the universal bracelet now. Otherwise, He would definitely go out and fight this guy one-on-one. Who asked this fellow to always snatch his sister away from him? As long as he had the opportunity, he would definitely teach it a lesson. Qin Ju was filled with hatred. However, Leng Ruoxue felt a headache coming on when she saw the two little fellows at each other's throats. She knew that Qin Ju was no match for Tsang, so Qin Ju could only be bullied. She really did not want to see Qin Ju cry, so she had no choice but to change the topic. Tsang, you brought us into the God-protecting pagoda. You should have something to say, right? Hee hee. Nyo's smart. When Azure heard this, he smiled. What is it? Leng Ruoxue asked curiously. Do you know this person? Tsang smiled mysteriously. Then, he raised his small claws and a light screen appeared in front of Leng Ruoxue. Leng Ruoxue was stunned when she saw the person on the screen. She then asked, Cheap old ancestor? Tsang, this person is my family's cheap old ancestor. You let me see him. Did something happen to him? Leng Ruoxue could not help but guess. He's fine. Moreover, he's heading toward the Yao family's divine realm. He's probably here to attack you. Azure said with a smile. Suppress me? Are you saying that the Yao family is being dishonest again? Leng Ruoxue raised her brows and asked indifferently. While you were researching medicinal pills for the 7-crystal flower, the old man of the Yao family secretly contacted many large forces, such as the Alchemist Guild headquarters, the Artifact Master Guild headquarters, the Ascender Alliance, and the Beast Race. They were all invited. It won't be long before these major powers arrive at the Yao family's divine realm. Azure explained with a smile. Are you here to die? Hearing this, the demon said coldly. It's up to them to decide if they'll send themselves to their deaths. However, there are plenty of people who want to fish in troubled waters. Cold laughed even more delightedly. Its face was filled with an expression of schadenfreude. Seeing it like this, Leng Ruoxue really didn't know if she should pity those fellows who were invited because she could tell that Cold was very bored. At this moment, Leng Ruoxue suddenly thought of a fact and asked, Cheap old ancestor is here representing the Armament Guild headquarters? Of course, not only him, but his master is also here. Azure reminded. They're probably here to join in the fun. Leng Ruoxue understood. Are you sure? Why don't you think that they might be here to put righteousness before family? Azure asked, somewhat puzzled. Seeing Nyo so calm, it felt that it had no sense of accomplishment, which made it a bit disappointed. How it wished it could see Nyo's panic-stricken appearance. Unfortunately, this wish seemed to be difficult. Mo Yen and our cheap ancestor are both very protective of their own. It's impossible for them to put righteousness before family unless they've taken the wrong medicine. Leng Ruoxue said with certainty. She was very confident in this. Chapter 2279. A good show is on. 3. Maybe they just took the wrong medicine. Tsang mumbled softly. However, no matter how soft his voice was, Leng Ruoxue could still hear him. What did Azure mean by this? Leng Ruoxue was speechless. Why did it seem like it was hoping that its cheap ancestor would put righteousness before family? The helpless Leng Ruoxue automatically ignored Tsang's resentful words. She raised her head and looked at the white sky above her, feeling a little sad. However, very quickly, Leng Ruoxue forgot about these small interludes and admired the Yao family head's appearance, which was like a trapped beast, with a face full of excitement. When she found out that Tsang Yu had ordered Lil Fire to abduct the Yao family's grand elder and the rest, Leng Ruoxue expressed her deep sympathy for the Yao family. However, it was only sympathy. She had no intention of being kind enough to let Lil Fire release them. In addition, she was also clear that the Yao family didn't have much money left. Xiaohua and the other beasts probably wouldn't be able to rob anything from the Yao family. And the current Yao family was also in a situation where they had no one to use. Elder Yao Jiao, who had been put in house arrest by the Yao family's head because of the repeated kidnapping of the Yao family elders, was released. However, when he heard that the first elder and the others had disappeared again, he didn't show any gloating expression, but instead expressed deep concern. After all, as members of the Yao family, they were bound together for good or bad. The disappearance of the Yao family elders was definitely not good news for the Yao family. Furthermore, this news had spread out uncontrollably. To the Yao family who had been trying their best to hide it, it was definitely adding hail to snow. At this time, although the head of the Yao family knew who had kidnapped them, he had no way to save them. This was because all his thoughts were focused on entertaining the various major forces, and Elder Yao Jiu's work was naturally focused on this. "No, old man Ning, are you really not in a hurry?" The head of the Chung clan, who had been spinning around like a headless fly, couldn't help but ask after feeling a little dizzy. Seeing old man Ning's calm and composed appearance, he really wanted to bite him hard. He wasn't the emperor, he wasn't in a hurry. He was not a eunuch. Just as he thought this, Master Ching immediately reacted and glared at Master Ning. Seeing this, the master of the Ning family took another sip of tea and said helplessly, "What's the use of me being anxious? If I'm anxious, won't those people come? However, I feel that the old man of the Yao family should be even more anxious than me right now, right? You should know that the Yao family's elders have gone missing again." Thinking of this, the master of the Ning family couldn't help but be secretly happy. He didn't need to guess to know who did this. Moreover, not only did he know, everyone on Earth knew. It is reasonable to say that he should be anxious, but right now, he has clearly placed the safety of the Yao family's first elder and the others before dealing with you. Therefore, you should be the one to be anxious first. The head of the Chung family sighed softly. He didn't know what to say when he thought of the elders of the Yao family who had gone missing twice. How could those snakes do such a thing? They were really too evil. But to him, it was a great satisfaction. Furthermore, even with his eyes closed, he could guess the old man's reaction. "I'm not in a hurry. If I'm so anxious that I'm stomping my feet, then I'll have fallen into that old man's trap. I'm afraid he can't wait to see me throw myself into chaos." The master of the Ning family said, "That's true. However, I heard that this time the Alchemist Guild and the Armament Guild also sent people. Do you think they will stand on the Yao family's side? If that's the case, you'll be in a passive position." The clan head of the Chung clan said with a face full of worry. He was well aware of the transcendent status of the Alchemist Guild and the Blacksmith Guild in the Divine Realm. These two large guilds would often not even give face to the Divine Lord's estate. Do you think that these two headquarters will be at Old Man Yao's mercy? Hearing the Chung clan's clan head's worried words, the Ning clan's clan head lightly smiled and asked. To be honest, he wasn't worried about the Armament Guild, but he wasn't certain of the Alchemist Guild's intentions. After all, from a certain perspective, the Alchemist Guild's position was more special. I won tea. However, it's better to be safe than sorry. The patriarch of the Chung clan couldn't help but remind him. Keep your worries to yourself. The master of the Ning family consoled him. He looked calm on the surface, but in fact, he was not that calm on the inside. He was only slightly relieved when the people from the two headquarters arrived at the Yao family's main city. This was because he saw Mo Yen and Lung Xiaoyu in the Armament Guild headquarters team. However, the two of them acted as if they did not see him and turned a blind eye to him. Thanks, the master of the Ning family was very confused, but since the other party pretended not to know him, he could only ignore his existence. When he saw the people from the Armament Guild headquarters, the Ning family head immediately informed Lung Ruoxue of the situation. However, Lung Ruoxue was much calmer than he had expected and did not comment much on Mo Yen and Lung Xiaoyu's reactions. This made the Ning family head even more confused. However, he didn't ask any further and remained as calm as ever in the inn in the Yao clan's main city. During this period, many family representatives had visited the people from the two headquarters, but only the Ning family had adopted the policy of biding their time. Patriarch, should we also go and see Jiang Ning and His Excellency Mo Yen? In the room of the master of the Ning family, the seventh elder of the Ning family asked for his opinion. Why should I see them? I don't need them to refine pills or weapons. Hearing this, the master of the Ning family blinked his eyes, looking puzzled. Being on good terms with them will only benefit our Ning family. Besides, they're here for Schwer, that girl. If we take the initiative, they'll have to consider our position when they express their opinions. So, in general, it's still good. The seventh elder racked his brain to think of the benefits of meeting the two people and reminded them. Who knew that after hearing his words, the clan head didn't take it seriously at all and waved his hand. Our Ning family doesn't need to curry favor with them. He was also very proud, okay? Moreover, in terms of seniority, Mo Yen and Jiang Ning were not as senior as him. So, before he knew the other's intentions, he was not willing to lower himself to meet those two people. When the seventh elder heard how stubborn his master was, he knew that it was useless to persuade him, so he could only dispel the idea in his heart. Just like that, the Ning family became the only power that had not paid a visit to Jiang Ning and Mo Yen. As soon as the Ning family appeared in the inn, they would immediately become the center of attention. There were even a few times when the seventh elder heard the other party whisper that the Ning family was too arrogant. If he didn't consider the consequences, he almost couldn't control himself and beat up those people who were making sarcastic remarks. However, when the seventh elder reported these things to his family head, the calmness of his family head made the seventh elder quite annoyed. Just like that, the seventh elder of the Ning family's depression continued until the banquet that the Yao family had set up to welcome all the forces. As one of the top forces in the divine realm, no matter how much the head of the Yao family hated the Ning family would naturally be invited. Seeing the excitement of the head of the Ning family when he received the invitation, seventh elder Ning was deeply worried. Although he really wanted to say, "Master, can you not be so excited?" Those who didn't know would think that you were going to cause a scene. And in fact, Master Ning really wanted to smash the place. He had been waiting for this day ever since he found out that the Yao family had invited many other major forces. In addition, even though it was called a welcome banquet, no one, including the Yao family, was sure what the outcome would be. Whether or not both the host and the guests would be happy, no one was sure. Especially the Yao family. Since the arrival of the Armament Masters Guild and the Alchemist Guild, the entire Yao family had been in a state of anxiety and excitement. With this kind of contradictory mood, under the financial support of the Yao family, the reception banquet in the inn where Master Ning and the others lived finally began. As the host of the banquet, Elder Yao Jiu naturally stayed in the inn and busied himself with work. On the day of the banquet, the head of the Yao family arrived at the inn unexpectedly early. Of course, his main target was Jiang Ning. As for the Ning family master and the others, they were completely ignored by him. Seeing that he had been neglected, the master of the Ning family remained calm. However, the master of the Chung family pretended to complain, "This damn thing is so realistic." When he saw people from the Alchemist Guild headquarters, he cast everyone to the side. What else? He now hates us to the bone. Do you expect him to treat us like guests? The master of the Ning family teased. Not to the extent of being a VIP, but I didn't expect him to be unwilling to even do things to save face now. It seems that the hatred he has for our 7 families is not just a little bit. The head of the Chung clan was speechless. It's good that you know. The master of the Ning family smiled and found a seat himself. Seeing this, the master of the Chung family also sat down beside him. At this moment, a loud phoenix's cry suddenly sounded, followed by a dragon's cry, and then a tiger's roar. The roars of the 3 beasts echoed each other, as if they were competing with each other. The weaker people's faces gradually turned pale when they heard the beasts roar. It's going to be even more lively now. Chapter 2280, Beautiful Man, 1. Hearing the roars of the beasts, the master of the Ning family couldn't help but frown. He was the one who had said those words just now. Moreover, in the eyes of others, the roars of the dragon, phoenix, and tiger were powerful and imposing, but in his eyes, these were all demonic sounds that filled his ears. They were all noisier. Moreover, he didn't need to guess to know why these beasts were here. Old man Yao should be happy now, right? However, this was all thanks to Jiang Ning. This was because alchemists were simply too attractive to both humans and beasts. However, no matter what the reason was, The fact that these beasts were willing to come to the Yao family's divine realm was something that the old man of the Yao family was gratified about. As soon as the sounds of the dragon, phoenix, and tiger appeared, the head of the Yao family came out of the room with a face full of joy. His face was even red, making it obvious that he was in an extremely good mood. Normally, before the banquet started, a person with the status of the head of the Yao family didn't need to appear too early. After all, he was the head of the family. Unfortunately, the Yao family had been tormented by the Blue Snake clan during this period of time, and their reputation had been tarnished. Various versions of rumors were everywhere, so the Yao family, from the head of the family to the ordinary clansmen, attached great importance to the reception of the various forces. This could be seen from the banquet this time. Therefore, the head of the Yao family had lowered his status and came out early to build a good relationship with everyone. And the first person he wanted to rope in was naturally the Alchemist Guild's main guild's vice president, Jiang Ning. As long as Jiang Ning was willing to stand on his side, he would be able to win over at least half of the people and beasts. However, Jiang Ning wasn't someone that could be easily used, so he wasn't even sure if his plan would succeed. However, after a short period of contact, the Yao family's head and Jiang Ning had a very good conversation. Their relationship had improved by leaps and bounds, and they were only short of calling each other brothers. Therefore, with such a good start, the Yao family's head's confidence had increased by several times. His depressed mood, which had been stirred up by the damn Blue Snake clan, had instantly lightened up. Almost everyone could sense the good mood of the head of the Yao family, so they couldn't help but wonder if he had reached some kind of agreement with Jiang Ning. The doubts in everyone's heart were like a cat scratching, itching. The more they wanted to know some inside information, the more they couldn't ask at this time, because everyone knew that now was definitely not a good time to inquire about this information. Right now, the time and the limelight belonged to the beasts. After the head of the Yao family came out of his room, he only glanced at the hall before immediately stepping out of the store. He raised his head and saw several huge white tigers, dragons, and phoenixes floating in the sky. However, to his disappointment, he did not see the figure of the Qilin clan. However, he was still very happy that these three clans were willing to give him face and come. This time, each of the three clans had sent 2 elders, a total of 6 beasties. However, the strength of these 6 beasties was only equivalent to a human divine emperor, so their status among the elders of the 3 clans should not be the highest. However, they were of noble birth, so even the head of the Yao family would not easily neglect them. The moment the Yao family head saw them, he immediately smiled and said affably, "Elders, please come down for a chat." The 6 huge beasts nodded and landed on the ground, transforming into their human forms. There were 2 men and 4 women. From their appearance, there was nothing to be picky about. The men were handsome and the women were beautiful. However, the expressions on these 6 people's faces were somewhat unpredictable. They seemed to be disdainful and dissatisfied. In short, the 6 of them put on more airs than the family masters of the 8 divine regions. After being invited into the inn by the Yao family master, they still turned a blind eye to the people present. Thanks originally, everyone felt that it was unfair. Even if you're 3 of the 4 great king divine beasts of the magical beasts, the people present here are basically the representatives of the various great powers of the divine realm. No matter how arrogant you are, no matter how noble your bloodline is, you shouldn't have left us here without even a word of greeting, right? However, when they saw that the master of the Ning family and the others, who were of higher status than them, were also ignored, everyone's heart instantly balanced out. Compared to the family heads of the 8 great divine regions, they were really nothing. He didn't even put Master Ning and the others in his eyes, so they were as small as dust. However, after their hearts were balanced, they began to sympathize with Master Ning and the others. After all, they were the masters of the 8 great divine regions. Their status among the humans in the divine realm was equivalent to the king of the 4 great kings of the magical beasts. However, at this moment, those few people were being looked down upon by a few unremarkable elders of the 4 great kings of the divine beasts. To the humans, this was definitely a great humiliation. Everyone suddenly felt indignant, and their impression of the three beast tribes took a sharp turn for the worse. However, no one dared to offend the three beast tribes. Therefore, no one was willing to stand out at this time, even though they were dissatisfied. However, everyone's red and undisguised sympathetic gazes made the head of the Chung family a little angry. Why was he looking at them with such a gaze? Wasn't it just those little beasts who ignored them? Fine, I'll ignore you. You guys are ignoring me, but I don't want to talk to you. I'm the family head of one of the 8 divine regions. I can't afford to lose face by sticking my warm face to your cold ass. Not to mention you guys, even if your king came, I wouldn't care. The master of the Chung family cursed in his heart. At the same time, his small eyes involuntarily drifted to Old Man Ning. Seeing that he didn't even blink, that his expression didn't change, and that he was still calmly drinking his tea, his heart was filled with admiration. As expected of his boss. Look at this aura, this style, I played it well. Moreover, he didn't treat himself as an outsider at all, and the banquet hadn't even started yet. He would eat it first. At this time, the cold dish in front of Master Ning had already been eaten by him several times, and it was even eaten with tea. It really didn't match no matter how he looked at it. After some thought, Master Cheng leaned closer to Master Ning and whispered in his ear, "Old Man Ning, those little bastards didn't give us any face. Should we teach them a lesson? Don't." Hearing this, Master Ning raised his head and glanced at Master Cheng, whose eyes were shining and whose face was full of expectation. Why? The head of the Chung clan was puzzled. I won't do such a shameful thing. If it's their king, I might consider it. Master Ning said matter-of-factly. However, these little bastards were too detestable. In my opinion, they're clearly doing this on purpose. The head of the Chung family was still very angry. Have you ever heard of the Wheel of Fortune? If they look down on us, others will also look down on them. The master of the Ning family smiled mysteriously. What do you mean by that? The head of the Chung clan felt that his brain was unable to wrap itself around this. He actually didn't understand Old Man Ning's words. Chapter 2281. Beautiful Man, 2. You'll know soon. Master Ning's smile became more and more mysterious, which seduced Master Cheng's heart like a kitten, making it itch. At this time, the 6 elders of the dragon, phoenix, and tiger tribes had already taken their seats under the guidance of the Yao family's head. Of course, they were sitting at the main table. The head of the Chung clan looked at their seats, and then looked at where he was sitting. Only now did he discover that Old Man Ning had actually chosen an unremarkable corner. You bastard! We should be sitting at that table. Take all the seats and make them have no seats. The head of the Chung clan said hatefully. Hee. Hearing Master Cheng's rather childish words, Master Ning couldn't help but laugh. You're still laughing? Let's see what kind of lousy place you've chosen. It's so remote, no wonder we're being ignored. The head of the Chung clan complained. Old Man Cheng, you're wrong. We're being ignored, and it has nothing to do with our seats. The Yao clan had done this on purpose. I remember Shuer once said that a person with true status and position is not determined by their position. It was that wherever they sat, that would be the main seat. Do you dare to say that if I wear a beggar's outfit, I'm no longer the head of the Ning family? The master of the Ning family said calmly. The head of the Chung family listened to his words and thought about it carefully. He also felt that it made sense. However, he still felt uncomfortable in his heart, but he was much calmer. Suddenly, the master of the Yin family, who had also chosen to sit with them, said softly, Sir Jiang Ning has come out. Where do you think he will choose to sit? Do you even need to ask? Of course, I'm going to sit with Old Man Yao. The head of the Chung clan said matter-of-factly. Jiang Ning was different from them. Although Jiang Ning was only a divine emperor, no one dared to offend him. Besides, it seemed like Jiang Ning was on good terms with the old man of the Yao family, unlike the 7 of them, who had already become Old Man Yao's thorn in his side. Therefore, no one in the Yao family was in charge of hosting them at this banquet. Besides, they had been here for the longest time and had a good relationship with each other. In the eyes of the Yao family, they were already part of the same country. The The 7 of them sat together without any fear. At this moment, Jiang Ning had just come down the stairs. The Yao family head had already introduced him to the elders of the dragon, phoenix, and tiger tribes. When the 6 of them saw Jiang Ning, they were unusually friendly. Their attitude was completely different from their cold attitude from before. They were even more friendly towards Jiang Ning than they were towards the Yao family head. Jiang Ning was also very respectful and kept on exchanging pleasantries with him. The Yao family head was ignored by both sides. Although this scene made the head of the Yao family a little angry, he didn't show it on his face. This was because he couldn't afford to offend either Jiangning or the 4 divine beast kings. So, even though he was angry, the head of the Yao family still had a perfect smile on his face. When both parties finally finished exchanging pleasantries, the head of the Yao family hurriedly invited Jiang Ning to take a seat. However, Jiang Ning didn't sit down immediately. Instead, he used his bright black eyes to look around the banquet hall, as if he was looking for someone. Mo Yen isn't here yet? Jiang Ning asked as he searched. "I'm coming." A voice rang out from the stairs. Then, everyone saw Mo Yen and his beloved disciple walking elegantly towards the main table. As they passed by the other tables, many representatives from different forces greeted Mo Yen, and Mo Yen responded enthusiastically to them all. At the main table, before Mo Yen could say anything, he heard Jiang Ning complain, "Why are you so late?" "Thanks, what's wrong?" Mo Yen raised his eyebrows and asked, as if he didn't understand Jiang Ning's meaning, his face full of question marks. "Other than you and your master, I don't know anyone else here. I'm so bored." Jiang Ning's words were rather resentful, but it made everyone break out in cold sweat. So the representatives of the 3 legendary beasts and the Yao family head who had been exchanging warm greetings with him all this time had all been in vain? He actually treated them as strangers. This result made everyone want to laugh, but they didn't dare to. It was really hard to hold it in, and their shoulders were already trembling nonstop. When they heard this, the faces of the Yao family's head and the elders of the 3 great divine beasts all darkened. Mo Yan's forehead was also full of black lines, thinking, "Sir Jiang Ning, can you not ignore too many people at once? This would attract hatred." As a matter of fact, he had already seen many people's faces change. However, even if others didn't dare to laugh, the head of the Qing clan didn't care. Not only did he laugh heartily, but he also accidentally spat the tea in his mouth onto the face of the person at the opposite table. When that person saw that the person who had spat the tea on his face was the head of the Qing clan, he could only admit that he was unlucky. However, the head of the Qing clan was still rather polite and said, "I'm sorry." He gave the man an apologetic look and continued to smile. His laughter was too loud, and in the process of his maniacal laughter, the entire hall suddenly fell silent. Almost everyone's eyes were focused on him, and for a moment, the head of the Qing clan became the focus of everyone's attention. "Damn it! Are you done laughing?" Hearing this savage laughter, the head of the Yao family was enraged. "What's wrong? Is it illegal to laugh?" The Qing clan's patriarch rolled his eyes at the Yao clan's patriarch and said in an unpleasant tone, "It's not illegal." Hearing the laughter of the Qing clan's patriarch, my mood is much brighter. Jiang Ning didn't give the Yao family head a chance to speak and immediately interrupted. Since he had already said so, the head of the Yao family couldn't do anything other than glare at the head of the Qing family. After all, this banquet was very important to him. He couldn't ruin an important occasion where he was entertaining guests for an old man from the Qing family. With this thought, the head of the Yao family suppressed his anger, but in the next second he was enraged again. Because he saw Jiang Ning, Mo Yen, and Leng Xiaoyu walking towards the table where the master of the Ning family was sitting. The 3 of them even sat down. This fact caused the fury of the Yao family's head to instantly rise by countless levels, and a fierce light flickered in his eyes. If looks could kill, then the people at the table would probably have died 1,000 times over. As soon as Jiang Ning sat down, he began to chat with the head of the Ning family, who was sitting opposite him. He looked as if he had just seen his idol, which made the head of the Yao family burn with jealousy. The anger in his heart was almost out of control. Therefore, he didn't even think before angrily rushing over to the Ning family's head's table. He first glared at them fiercely, then put on a kind expression and said to Jiang Ning and Mo Yen, "Sirs, your seats are not here." "Not here? It's all right, isn't there an empty seat here? I'm going to sit here," Jiang Ning said nonchalantly. Hearing Jiang Ning's words, the head of the Chung family couldn't help but pat him on the shoulder like brothers. "Mr. Jiang Ning, you have a good taste. Although this place is a bit remote, it's quiet. No one will disturb us. Therefore, you should just sit here." Chapter 2282, Beautiful Man, 3. Hee hee. I think so too. I don't want to be surrounded by people like a monkey, so I'm more comfortable sitting here. Jiang Ning replied with a smile. That's the logic. The Cheng family's head swept away his depression and was in a good mood. Then, he wanted to drink tea in place of wine and have a chat with Jiang Ning. Fortunately, the Ning family's head stopped him. Otherwise, these two people would have been full from drinking tea. The head of the Yao family was filled with hatred when he heard the conversation between the two. However, he couldn't do anything about it. He couldn't force Jiang Ning to sit at the main table, could he? Then, he glanced at the 6 elders of the dragon kind, the phoenix kind, and the tiger kind, who were sitting at the main table with the same ugly expressions on their faces. At this moment, Elder Yao Jiao appeared and quickly walked over to whisper a few words into the Yao family head's ear. The Yao family head's face immediately revealed a happy expression. This was great, he finally had a way out. In fact, he was so angry that he wanted to leave just now, but he had no way out. If he left with his tail between his legs, these damn things would definitely make fun of him in the future. Therefore, he could only hold on. But now, little Jiao had brought him good news, so the Yao family head's mood was obviously much better. He smiled faintly and said, "Since Sir Jiang Ning and Sir Mo Yen like the quiet, then the two of you can sit here. There's an important guest outside. I'll go out to welcome him. Please excuse me." After saying that, the head of the Yao family strode out of the hall without even looking back. Seeing him leave in a hurry, the master of the Chung family was curious and asked in a low voice, "Which other distinguished guest will come? Could it be the Qilin clan?" "Impossible. I didn't hear the cries of the Qilin clan, so it shouldn't be them." Immediately after, the head of the Chung clan denied his own words. Seeing this, the master of the Ning family couldn't help sighing and then said, "Can't you be quiet? Why are you so talkative? I'm just curious about who it is." The head of the Chung family felt very wronged. How could he watch the show without saying anything? "It's the people from the Divine Master's estate." The master of the Ning family said helplessly as he glanced at the young wife-like master of the Chung family. "You used your divine sense?" The head of the Chung family asked in a low voice. It was very impolite to use divine sense on someone else's territory, and it was also a provocative behavior. Of course, unless you had extraordinary strength and could not be discovered by the master, if the master wanted to find trouble with you, the other party who used divine sense was simply not in the right. "No, I didn't." Did this still require the use of divine sense? Most of the people who should be here are already here. Now, other than the people of the Divine Master's estate, I don't think anyone else will be treated as an honored guest by the Yao family's old thing. Master Ning said matter-of-factly. He had to admit that he was right. The Divine Master's estate had indeed sent someone. The ones who had come were not just any minor characters, but 2 of the 3 hierarch of the Divine Master's estate, Xia Yi and Huang Wei. Not long after, the head of the Yao family came in with 2 distinguished guests and directly invited them to the main table. When Master Chung saw this, he blinked and turned to look at Master Ning, saying, "Old man Ning, you've really guessed right." The master of the Ning clan smiled but did not say anything. Xia Yi and Huang Wei, who had been invited to the main table, glanced at the people at the same table and then glanced around. Without even greeting the 6 elders of the Dragon Clan, Phoenix Clan, and Tiger Clan, they went straight to the table where the master of the Ning clan and the others were seated, greeted them, and exchanged pleasantries. When the head of the Yao family and the 6 elders saw this scene, they were so angry that they trembled. However, The head of the Yao family was still very glad because there were no more seats at that table. Even if Huang Wei and Xia Yi wanted to sit with them, they would not have the chance. Sure enough, after exchanging greetings with the master of the Ning family and the others, the two of them reluctantly returned to the main table. Is this retribution? The patriarch of the Cheng family was in an even better mood when he saw the Yao family patriarch and the other beast elders' faces turn as black as ink, but they could only swallow their anger. This is called the Wheel of Fortune. Just a few little guys from the King Divine Beast clan, did they really think that they were great? If it wasn't for the fact that we have to avoid suspicion in public, do you think I would let them go? The master of the Ning family said coldly. I knew it, how could you not be angry? Hearing this, the master of the Chung family smiled. Old man Ning was much nobler than him. It seemed that he had to learn more from him. Old man Ching, even if you're angry, you have to pay attention to your status, understand? The master of the Ning family reminded. I know. The patriarch of the Chung clan hurriedly replied like an obedient baby. He knew in his heart that this was definitely Old Man Ning's intention to beat him by surprise. When he thought of this, he somewhat sympathized with the few Beast clan elders. Of all people, he had to put on airs in front of them. Wasn't he asking for it? The head of the Qing family was a little excited. Sympathy was sympathy, but he also liked to do things like beating people up. When the time came, he would have to be counted in. Just as the head of the Chung family was letting his thoughts run wild, the head of the Yao family, who wasn't in a good mood, had already swiftly announced the start of the banquet. Thanks as the dishes were served one by one, the Chung clan's patriarch's frown deepened. Old man Ning, is this all he's giving us? Aren't these dishes a little too ordinary? The head of the Chung clan said with a look of disdain. That's good enough. After all, we're not sitting at the main table. The master of the Ning family said calmly. That's true, but I guess the Yao family really doesn't have much money left. The head of the Chung clan laughed evilly. That's normal. Master Ning replied with a smile, but in his heart he was thinking, why isn't Shuer here yet? At the same time, Leng Ruoxue, who was at the bottom of the cliff, sneezed loudly. Someone's talking about me. Leng Ruoxue, who was standing beside the 7 crystal flower, said with certainty. It should be someone who's getting impatient. The first elder said with an evil smile. Just now, they had heard quite a few beast roars and had already guessed that it was the Beast clan. However, this was the most critical moment for the 7 crystal flower to recover. Hence, everyone chose to remain at the bottom of the cliff and wait for the 7 crystal flower to recover. This was also the reason why Leng Ruoxue had come out of the God Pagoda with evildoer Ji Tsung. During this period of time, the 7 crystal flower had grown well after being nourished by countless nutrient fluids. Its vitality had also mostly recovered, and now, everyone was looking forward to the 7 crystal flower's transformation. At this moment, the 7 crystal flower's huge petals, except for the outermost few that were still withered, were as bright and eye-catching as when they first bloomed. On the dark red petals, there were a few drops of beautiful and clear dew. Anyone who saw it would know that this flower was very fresh. However, the 7 crystal flower's petals were now closed, forming a huge flower bud. Suddenly, the flower bud trembled a few times before it quieted down. Not long after, the petals began to tremble again. Then, everyone felt the surrounding spiritual energy rapidly surge in from all directions and envelop the huge 7 crystal flower. After a long time, the spiritual energy was completely absorbed by the 7 crystal flower. The 7 crystal flower in everyone's eyes became even more dazzling and soul-stirring. In an instant, the dazzling 7 crystal flower suddenly disappeared before everyone's eyes, and in its place was an extremely handsome man, like a banished immortal that no one could take their eyes off. He was dressed in dark red clothes, his dark golden eyes shimmering with light, and his skin was as perfect as morning dew. He was definitely a man who could make most women feel inferior. And this man's appearance was almost on par with the evildoer. However, they were used to seeing demonic looks, so they were used to this man's stunning appearance. What made them most dumbfounded was the man's identity. Don't tell us that you're the 7-crystal flower. The great elder was the first to stammer when he saw the stunningly beautiful man in front of him. Although he knew that the spirits of heavenly materials and earthly treasures also had genders, it was a little unacceptable that such a beautiful flower turned out to be a man after taking human form, right? I am. Seeing everyone's dumbfounded expression, the 7-crystal flower could not help but smile evilly. These days, although he was unable to transform due to his Bodhi's condition, as his consciousness slowly recovered, he was already very familiar with these humans. Therefore, he was still very happy to see them dumbfounded. He couldn't deny that he had been waiting to see this shocking scene for a long time. The crowd didn't know how to describe their feelings. Shocked? Not yet. Surprised? A little more than that. Seeing the 7-crystal flower, everyone was at a loss. Fortunately, the surprised little fox finally reacted at this time and directly pounced into the arms of the 7-crystals flower. It bawled and sobbed, relieving the embarrassment in their hearts. Seeing everyone let out a sigh of relief, Azure couldn't help but grin. Then he said to the 7-crystal flower, "Xiao Hua, do you still remember me? Little flower." When everyone heard these 2 words, they felt a chill run down their spines. Their foreheads were all filled with black lines, and these 2 words directly made the 7-crystal flower's face darken. "Don't call me little flower?" Imchi ran. The veins on the 7-crystal flower's forehead throbbed as it spoke through gritted teeth. "But I still think that Xiao Hua is more suitable for you. How about I call you male flower? And Fog was a female flower? You two can make a perfect pair." "It's decided," Azure said, completely ignoring the 7-crystal flower's darkening expression. "Who made this decision with you? You bastard. Don't mention that bitch in front of me, you hear me?" Blue's words infuriated the self-proclaimed 7-die flower. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't defeat Blue, he would have rushed over and beat the crap out of this fellow who had touched a sore spot. But now, he could only use his fire-breathing eyes to glare at Azure. Chapter 2283, The Bird That Stands Out, 1. I didn't hear you. You don't want me to mention it, so I won't mention it? How embarrassing would that be? Besides, your relationship back then was not ordinary. At that time, I was very, very envious of you too. Song's smile was extremely ambiguous. When everyone heard this, they couldn't help but prick up their ears, afraid that they would accidentally reveal a sentence or 2. Therefore, they listened especially carefully. As soon as Song's words fell, the word dick appeared in everyone's mind. The expression on their faces became ambiguous. Even Lung Ruoxue didn't expect that this beautiful flower man had an unusual relationship with Fog. Did she save an enemy for herself by spending so much effort to save him? Lung Ruoxue could not help but mutter to herself. One had to know that matters of the heart were very difficult to say. Don't look at how this beautiful man gritted his teeth when Song mentioned rhyme ice, but from his appearance, it was clear that his love had turned into hatred. This situation was often the most dangerous, because once the Fog showed goodwill, the 2 were likely to rekindle their old feelings. Hence, Lung Ruoxue was in a dilemma. However, she was a person who would never regret her actions. Moreover, both Tsang and Qingju had agreed for her to save this flower. Therefore, she believed that Tsang and Qingju would not let her work for nothing. With this thought in mind, she calmed down. "Girl, your worry is unnecessary. This guy and Wu Yen are not what you think." Sensing Lung Ruoxue's thoughts, Azure couldn't help but transmit his voice. "What? Did she misunderstand?" Lung Ruoxue was speechless when she heard Song's words. She didn't want to misunderstand. It was clear that Song had misled her, because looking at everyone's expressions, they must have thought the same. Rhyme ice was the earliest plant that appeared in the divine world. This little flower appeared slightly later than rhyme ice. Therefore, rhyme ice has always taken care of it. The 2 of them were once as close as siblings. However, rhyme ice is a very realistic person. She would not do anything that would not benefit her. Rhyme ice approached it for her own purpose. It was for the scarce chaotic spiritual energy in the body of this stupid flower. In the end, Rhyme Ice obtained this stupid flower and it became what you all see now. Azure explained with a smile. I see. Hearing Tsong's explanation, Lung Ruoxue understood. At the same time, she was also thinking that if this beautiful man could still forgive that woman, Fog, with such deep hatred, then this fellow could be described as a saint. She hoped that this fellow would not disappoint her. After all, she didn't want to save an ungrateful person. Lung Ruoxue was conversing with Tsong in secret. At this moment, Hua Meinen's voice rang in her ears. The voice was accompanied by the sound of grinding teeth. Who has an unusual relationship with that bitch? Who's it? Chi Ran was furious. Those things were the biggest humiliation in her heart. She wanted to forget about it long ago, but this damn cat kept bringing it up. How detestable. Of course it's you. My girl and Fog Ice have a great enmity. Azure said on purpose. You. After hearing the first half of the sentence, Chi Ran was about to flare up when she suddenly heard the second half. Then, her gaze shifted from Tsong to Lung Ruoxue and she said with uncertainty, Do you have a grudge against Wu Cheng? Yes. The mist ripple killed my master. Lung Ruoxue spoke bluntly, suddenly understanding Tsong's motive. Who is your master? Lung Ruoxue's words piqued Chi Ran's curiosity. To be able to meet a benefactor who had a grudge against Wu Jing, he temporarily put aside his anger towards Tsong and focused on asking Lung Ruoxue. My master is you. The people of the divine realm all call him the divine master. Lung Ruoxue said indifferently. Initially, when Chi Ran heard the word you, she did not have much of a reaction. She was still wondering who this person was. However, when she heard the word divine master, her eyes widened in shock and she said in disbelief, Master Yu is your master? Oh my God. He had actually met Master Yes' disciple. Thanks then, Chi Ran's eyes widened even more. She stuttered, You just said that Wooly, that bitch, killed Master Yu? Master Yu has already fallen? After saying this, Chi Ran's entire body trembled as if she had thought of something. Her face turned even paler. Yes. Master has been dead for a long time. Lung Ruoxue replied honestly. How is this possible? How could Master Yu be killed by that bitch, Wu Xiao? This was impossible. You must have made a mistake. Master Yu will not die. I won tea. Chi Ran suddenly said, a little excited. It's true. Im Dong Fang Yue, Master Yes subordinate. I can vouch for the young master's words. At this moment, Dong Fang Yu spoke. The young master he was referring to was Lung Ruoxue. This was something that they had agreed upon. In front of outsiders, they would all address Lung Ruoxue as young master to show respect. I've heard of you. Chi Ran said as she slowly calmed down and looked deeply at Dong Fang Yu. Hearing this, Dong Fang Yu did not say anything else. Lung Ruoxue continued his conversation. The mist has killed my master. I will take revenge for my master. After she said that, her beautiful eyes swept over Chi Ran's body. Chi Ran's heart could not help but tremble. Count me in. Chi Ran said softly after a long time. Are you sure? Lung Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and asked calmly. Although this fellow was a flower that could nurture top-grade crystals, Lung Ruoxue could tell that this fellow's abilities were definitely not weak. It was just that he was not at his peak yet. Hence, she was really looking forward to seeing what this flower would look like when it was at its peak. More importantly, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. This guy has a grudge against me, so he'll feel that I didn't save the wrong person. Otherwise, he'll be depressed to death if I let him off the hook. And what Azure had said just now was probably to remind him and Chi Ran. As for Chi Ran's reaction, Azure should be satisfied, right? Actually, Lung Ruoxue's guess on this matter wasn't perfectly accurate. Tsong knew that Lung Ruoxue wouldn't force Chi Ran to acknowledge him as her master. Chi Ran was a proud person. Although Lung Ruoxue had saved him, it would be a little difficult for him to acknowledge her as his master. So, it decided to be the bad guy and give Tsong a warning while it was at it. When Seven Ran decided to join the team and avenge that idiot Yu, Azure knew that this was the best that Seven Ran could do at the moment. So, even though he was a little dissatisfied, he knew that this was the only way out for now. It was all because that little flower couldn't be forced. However, this was also good because it would sometimes hate the flower. If the little flower recognized Nyo as its master, it would not be able to teach it a lesson without any scruples. Thinking of this, Azure couldn't help but reveal a smug smile. His big, black and bright eyes would even glance at Chiron from time to time, scaring Chiron so much that her heart trembled for no reason. Chapter 2284. The Bird That Stands Out. 2. What was this guy trying to do? You bastard! Don't look at me like I'm your prey, okay? Chi-Ran felt a sense of danger and could not help but lean closer to Lung Ruoxue. Then she grabbed Lung Ruoxue's arm and said, "To express my gratitude to my savior, I have a lot of good things to give you." After saying that, Chi-Ran immediately pulled Lung Ruoxue along and ran away. She was so angry that she glared at her. Damn it! How dare that flower? The demon's face darkened, but he didn't chase after her. That flower was originally a lecherous person, what would he not dare to do? Azure laughed evilly and said matter-of-factly, "A lecherous person?" Hearing these words, everyone was once again shocked. They all looked at Song and thought, does this person know what kind of effect his words would have? It would harm that beautiful man. Everyone thought to themselves with sympathy. Just as this thought appeared in their minds, they saw the evildoer's face turn even darker. Then, a white light flashed in front of everyone and the evildoer disappeared. Everyone sighed, silently praying for Hua Meinan in their hearts. They hoped that he would not do anything that could not be undone. Otherwise, that demonic man would probably make him return to his previous state. No, it might even be worse than before. When the three of them were not around, everyone's thoughts ran wild. When they saw that Chiron had returned in one piece, it was as if grass had grown in everyone's hearts. The fire of gossip began to burn. He was actually fine? Everyone was shocked. Chi-Ran felt depressed when she received everyone's sympathetic and curious gazes. What was going on? He had only left for a short while, and these people's expressions had changed from surprise to sympathy? Chi-Ran couldn't understand. He didn't do anything he shouldn't have. Of course, he would never have thought that his kind and pure self would be labeled as a lecherous man by a certain beast. If he knew, he would definitely cry out that he was wronged. This was basically the rhythm of snow in June. Unfortunately, Chi-Ran knew nothing about it. Although Lung Ruoxue noticed that something was amiss, she was smart enough not to ask. At this moment, Lung Ruoxue received a voice transmission from her godfather asking why they were not here yet. So, she put this matter to the back of her mind for the time being. As for how Chiron got injured and how she got so badly injured, she would ask him again when there was a chance in the future. In truth, even if she did not ask, she could already tell from Song's words that Chi-Ran's injury had something to do with rime ice. Following that, Lung Ruoxue instructed everyone to collect the top-grade crystals on the walls because they had already received their reward. When everyone heard this, they quickly moved. Very quickly, the top-grade crystals on the wall were all collected by everyone. Chi-Ran was shocked to see this. With his mouth half open, he stared at the nimble crowd. Now he finally knew what a locust swarm was. The people in front of him were unbelievably quick. He couldn't help but look at the bare wall again. He didn't know what to feel in his heart, but it was definitely not heartache. After all, those Jingshi were not of much use to him. Thanks when Lung Ruoxue saw his expression, she could not help but tease. "What's wrong? You can't bear to?" No, these crystals are useless to me," Chi-Ran quickly said as she wiped the cold sweat off her forehead without batting an eyelid. Could he say that these Jingshi were just trash in his eyes? Seeing how excited everyone was, he knew that he had to keep his words to himself. Otherwise, it would definitely cause everyone to be angry. "Then why do you have such an expression?" Lung Ruoxue asked in amusement. "I'm just too shocked by the speed at which you people do things." "It's true," Chi-Ran promised. She even raised a hand and made an oath. "Time is money," Lung Ruoxue said matter-of-factly, then split the crystal stones into 3 portions, along with 2 storage rings, and passed them to Shen Nuo and Luiyue. The 2 of them looked at the ring, then at Leng Ruoxue, their faces full of question marks. This is Hua Mainen's reward for us. I've split it into 3. This is yours. Leng Ruoxue explained. We don't need it. The 2 of them hurriedly declined. You can have it all. If we need it, we'll ask you for it. Luiyue added with a smile. On the other hand, Shen Nuo kept nodding her head at the side, indicating that she agreed with what he said. Hearing their words, Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but curse in her heart. Bull fox. After that, he didn't force them to take the items and kept them. In fact, she had already known that this would be the result. However, she had to give what she should give. Whether she wanted it or not was their problem. After doing all this, Leng Ruoxue and the others planned to leave the bottom of the cliff. Who knew that Qi Ran would want to follow them? When Leng Ruoxue heard Qi Ran's words, she said in a speechless manner, "If you leave, what will happen to these little guys?" She pointed at the pitiful little fox with tears in her eyes. This little thing was about to cry. More importantly, the poisonous fog at the bottom of the cliff had suddenly reduced a lot after Qi Ran recovered. As such, it was much easier for outsiders to reach the bottom of the cliff. That was why she was worried about the safety of the little fox and the other sprites. They naturally left with me, Qi Ran said matter-of-factly. Can you take them away? Leng Ruoxue was very surprised. This was rather unexpected. Of course. I have my own space to take care of them, Qi Ran said with a smile. The little fox, who was initially in a daze, not only stopped crying after hearing this, but she also revealed a shy smile. If that's the case, then take them and leave with us. When Leng Ruoxue heard this, she agreed immediately. She had long heard that one could have their own world after becoming a reverent god-level cultivator. In that case, didn't that mean that this little flower had the power of a reverent god? However, as far as she knew, the reverent god's world was fixed in a certain place and could not be carried around at all. According to this logic, this little flower did have some unique abilities. No wonder these plants called it ancestor. In just a few short seconds, Leng Ruoxue's imagination ran wild again. At the same time, 2 chuckling sounds could be heard in her head. However, she intentionally ignored them. Qi Ran moved very quickly. With a slight wave of her hand, the little fox and the other beasts immediately disappeared. With another wave of her hand, the beautiful scenery at the bottom of the cliff became bare. It was as if it was winter and the leaves had dried up. Then, everyone left the bottom of the cliff together. At the same time, the poisonous fog at the bottom of the cliff slowly dispersed. After they left the cliff, Xiaohua and the rest of the beasts volunteered to take the lead and headed towards the Yao family's main city. Leng Ruoxue and the rest followed behind them unhurriedly. Of course, when Xiaohua and the other snakes left, there was one or several people wrapped around their tails. At this time, those people were basically unconscious. Even if 1 or 2 of them had some consciousness, they were also dizzy from the unstable bumps of the snakes. Chapter 2285. The Bird That Stands Out 3. Upon seeing this, Qi Ran was shocked again. What was going on? Why was it that after he woke up, he found that many things were out of his expectations? Or could it be that he had missed too many people, things while he was unconscious, so he had become a little white? This possibility made Qi Ran deeply worried. Back then, not many people would know about the 7 crystal flower. However, when the name Qi Ran was mentioned, everyone would know about it. That was why he was once a famous person. But now, when he thought about how Leng Ruoxue and the others did not react to his name, he felt even more sorrowful. Seeing Qi Ran's dumbfounded expression, the first elder, who was the closest to her, patted her on the shoulder and explained, "Those people are our enemies. Lil, Fire took them to ask for living expenses." As he explained, the first elder's heart was filled with sympathy for Qi Ran. Poor little flower. After being in a coma for so many years, to wake up to find that their world had changed, no one would be able to accept this. Therefore, The great elder decided to brainwash old Gu as soon as possible. At the very least, he had to let him adapt to their life, their rhythm, and their that. Oh, are we poor? Chi Ran couldn't help but ask curiously after hearing First Elder's words. We're not poor. However, there was no reason to raise them for free, right? Therefore, we can't lose a single cent. The great elder said. Chiron nodded, even though she still didn't quite understand. The rest of the time became the time for the great elder to answer 100,000 questions about Chi Ran. If the great elder couldn't answer, Dong Fong Lin and the others would take over. So, along the way, Lung Rushue listened to Chi Ran's endless questions. Just like that, Lung Ruoshue and the others arrived at the Yao family's main city in the midst of Chi Ran's endless questions. As they had been walking on the small path and had not passed by the city, when Chi Ran saw the tall city gate of the Yao family's main city, she could not help but exclaim, I can't believe there's a city here. In the past, this place was still a stinking ditch. Pfft. First Elder and the others couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. Chi Ran was really too cute. Although they had been stumped by Chi Ran's questions on the way here, they were still happy to be able to impart new knowledge to old Gu, who had been in a coma for hundreds of thousands of years. At least, under their careful education, Chiron was slowly growing up. It could also be said that the pure and innocent Chi Ran would never return. It wouldn't take long for him to be led astray by everyone. But now, he was still innocent. Therefore, everyone cherished his current appearance. What's wrong? Did I say anything wrong? Chi Ran asked in confusion when she heard their laughter. You're right. However, this place isn't that fragrant right now, and our enemy is the master of this divine territory. The first elder laughed evilly. If that's the case, then let's help them restore this place to a stinking ditch. Chi Ran suddenly said. Everyone who heard her was stunned. Oh my God! Could it be that the current Chi Ran had been led astray? It was too terrifying. It was no wonder people said that it was difficult to learn good things, but it only took one day to learn bad things. Clearly, it was only a matter of time before she became bad. Looking at everyone's stunned and shocked expressions, Chi Ran said proudly, Hee hee. Are you frightened by me? Actually, I was just joking. I'm such an innocent child, how could I do such a thing? If there's anything to do, it should be you guys. Everyone was dumbfounded. They were wrong. Chi Ran was definitely not an innocent child. The filling inside her was also black. However, he did not show it often. Seeing that everyone was looking at her in a daze, Chi ran to Lung Ruoshue again. Like a puppy, she stared at Lung Ruoshue with her wet, dark golden eyes and asked without blinking, Shue, am I right? That makes sense. However, you can't treat your companions as your helpers. So, you have to do your part. Lung Ruoshue said with a smile. Of course, but my talent is very simple. I can only use poison. Chi Ran said, a little depressed. You're poisonous too? His words surprised Lung Ruoshue. She could not help but size Chi Ran up. Was this fellow really poisonous? Why couldn't she tell? Of course I do. Moreover, my poison is almost on par with that slut Wu Luanus. Otherwise, after I was poisoned that year, how could I have waited until now for you to save me? Chi Ran said matter-of-factly. Chi Ran's words piqued Lung Ruoxue's interest. She then extended her fair hand and said with a smile, Give me some poison to use. Thanks, what do you want poison for? Lung Ruoxue's request made Chi Ran's fragile little heart beat wildly. She didn't know why, but she suddenly had a bad feeling. She kept feeling that someone was going to be in trouble. Why did this happen? Chi Ran was conflicted. Give me some poison to use. Lung Ruoshue glanced at Chi Ran, who was suddenly sad about the spring and autumn, and repeated. You can't use poison to harm people. Chi Ran reminded Lung Ruoshue worriedly, but she still handed her a transparent, glass-like bottle. Don't worry. I didn't even harm people. Lung Ruoshue promised and kept the small bottle into her bracelet. The group continued to move forward. However, before they could reach the inn where the master of the Ning family was, they were blocked by a sea of people in front of them. Of course, those people were not blocking them on purpose. The crowd in front of them seemed to be attracted by something. The great elder was curious. He patted the shoulder of the person in front of him and asked in a low voice, "Friend, what's going on in front? Why is there a traffic jam? It's so lively up ahead. The Yao family's elders are currently being hung in the air by a bunch of snakes, waiting for the Yao family head to pay for their living expenses." That person informed them with great enthusiasm. Even the great elder felt that his enthusiasm was a little too much. Then, first elder couldn't help but ask, "You dare to watch the Yao family's show in the Yao family's divine territory? Aren't you afraid that the Yao family will come after you later?" Tisk. The law was not responsible. There are so many of us, who would the Yao family remember? Besides, the Yao family doesn't have the time to care about us. They're already panicking, hee. The man became more and more excited as he spoke, and in the end, he even laughed in a very wretched manner. He did not forget to remind the great elder, "This is a rare opportunity. Don't miss it." Thank you. We won't miss this." The great elder couldn't help but wipe the cold sweat from his forehead. He felt some sympathy for the old man of the Yao family. However, these people's thoughts were right. They didn't add insult to injury. They only saw the Yao family as a joke, so what did it matter? Would the old man of the Yao family dare to silence them? If that was the case, then old man Yao would have to find a way to exterminate all the forces present today. Otherwise, the matter of the Yao family would not be able to be concealed. At the thought of this, first elder turned to Leng Ruoxue and whispered, "Girl, the road ahead is blocked. What do we do now?" "Girl, don't be afraid. I'll take you there. I promise I'll find you a good position." Azure suddenly promised. In the next second, the group had already appeared outside the inn. At this moment, the guests who were attending the banquet in the inn were all attracted by the incident created by Xiaohua. Leng Ruoxue and the others were standing on the side where the Ning family's master and the rest were. It was indeed a good angle. However, their position was slightly further back, and the gazes of the people present were all attracted by the black mass of snakes in the sky and the Yao family elders. Therefore, almost no one noticed them. However, Leng Ruoxue still sent a voice transmission to Master Ning and told her godfather where she was. Hearing this, Master Ning felt a little more at ease. In reality, when he saw these snakes, the master of the Ning family knew that his precious daughter had arrived. Now that he had received Leng Ruoxue's voice transmission, he was able to watch the Yao family make a fool of themselves in peace. Suddenly, the master of the Ning family felt his sleeve being pulled. He looked down and saw Old Man Chung looking at him with a smirk. He then whispered, "Old Man Ning, do you think Old Man Yao will ask us for help this time?" He was really curious. I won tea. There are so many helpers today, he won't use us. The head of the Ning family glanced at the ashen face of the head of the Yao family, which was gradually turning black, and said with great certainty, "AI. That's a pity." The head of the Chung family couldn't help but sigh. What a good opportunity to make money. It didn't belong to them. What's there to pity? How much money do you think the Yao family still has? The master of the Ning family laughed evilly. That's true. Hearing this, the head of the Chung family immediately calmed down. Recently, the Yao family had lost a lot of money, so they probably didn't have much left. However, what he didn't expect was that some of the thugs didn't need money at all. They didn't even need the Yao family head's request and volunteered to stand up for the Yao family. Yao family head, "I'll help you teach these stupid snakes a lesson. You don't have any objections, right?" As a matter of fact, just as the head of the Chung family had calmed down, an extremely beautiful woman in her early 30s had already implored the head of the Yao family with a cold face. Hearing this, the head of the Chung clan was very angry. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. "Damn old witch, can't you just calm down for a while? Must it be this one?" The woman who had spoken was one of the two elders from the Feng clan. In truth, it wasn't because she had a good relationship with the head of the Yao family that she wanted to stand up for him. It was because she had always been brooding over the treatment she had received before, and she had long been suppressing her anger. However, she couldn't vent her anger on the person who had annoyed her, so she could only use these uninvited snakes as her punching bags. Chapter 2286, Face-Slapping 1. When the head of the Yao family heard these words, he couldn't ask for more. Wasn't this like getting a pillow for sleeping? How stupid would he be if he refused such a good deal? Besides, he was planning to find someone to help. With someone volunteering, not only did he save time, but he also saved money. However, the head of the Yao family still pretended to hesitate and said with an embarrassed face, "Elder Qin, how can I accept this?" Hearing this, the head of the Chung clan was so disgusted that he wanted to vomit. He couldn't help but curse in his heart. "Damn old man, why are you pretending?" The more he looked at this old man, the more he disliked him. He clearly wanted someone to help him, but he put on such a deadpan face. Who was he showing it to? As for the woman who was called Elder Qin, she said indifferently, "What's there to be embarrassed about? The Yao family head sincerely invited us to be his guests. Now that the Yao family head is in trouble, it's only natural that we lend a hand. Take it for granted, my ass. Wasn't this like a bird taking a mouse to meddle in other people's business?" The head of the Chung family continued to curse in his heart. He really couldn't stand these two people who were so arrogant. However, these two people had the intention of looking at green beans and liking each other. This made him even more uncomfortable. At the thought of this, the head of the Chung clan couldn't help but say, "Elder Qin, old man Yao already said that you don't need to help, so why are you still so eager? With your strength, I think it's better for you to not reach out your hand. Even this old man Xiao can't beat him, you'll just be throwing your life away if you go." The patriarch of the Chung clan was very kind, so he had kindly reminded Elder Qin of the Feng clan. Furthermore, he had spoken the truth, but unfortunately, this truth caused Elder Qin and Patriarch Yao's faces to immediately darken. The two of them were furious. The other was to anger the head of the Chung family for looking down on her. Wasn't it just a few snakes? What couldn't he beat? In Elder Qin's heart, the bloodline of the Phoenix clan was supreme. Therefore, she was full of confidence that as long as she used her bloodline to suppress them, these snakes would have to obediently kneel in front of her and bow their heads to listen to her orders. Therefore, she was extremely disgusted with the kind advice of the Chung family head. Where's the head of the Yao family? He was angry that the old thing from the Chung family had ruined his good thing. "I can't afford to hire you, but someone is willing to take the initiative to help, and you actually want to destroy it. What kind of person are you?" The more the head of the Yao family thought about it, the angrier he became. If it wasn't for the fact that the occasion wasn't right, he would have taught this old man a harsh lesson. However, he was still angry in his heart. He also knew that he couldn't open his mouth to argue with the Chung clan's damned old man right now, otherwise, it would cause the majority of people to feel disgusted. Thus, after thinking for a moment, he put on a pitiful appearance and said to Elder Qin with a difficult expression, "Elder Qin, Elder Cheng's words aren't without reason. You see, of course, this wasn't the patriarch's true thoughts, but rather his intention to play hard to get. He deliberately only said half of the sentence, and the latter half was left to Elder Qin to imagine." As expected, Elder Qin's face immediately darkened as soon as Patriarch Yao finished speaking. She unhappily said, "Patriarch Yao, are you looking down on me? It's just a few little snakes, I don't care about them." When Elder Qin said this, the haughty aura in his eyes was enough to make people look up to him. "No, it wasn't he. How could I look down on Elder Qin? I just think that the Chung family head's words make sense. I've fought with these snakes before, and they are indeed powerful. That's why I wanted to remind Elder Qin." As soon as Elder Qin finished speaking, the Yao family's patriarch immediately explained eagerly, as if he was afraid that she would misunderstand. Thanks hearing this, Elder Qin's expression became much better. Then, he raised his aura and said sternly, after hearing what Patriarch Yao said, "I'm even more interested in competing with these little snakes." After saying that, Elder Qin didn't wait for the Yao family head's reaction and flew straight into the sky with a swoosh, and looked at those snakes. Immediately after, Elder Qin transformed back into her original form. In an instant, A huge, fiery red phoenix appeared in the sky and circled around. The phoenix's body was burning with scorching flames, and the moisture in the air was instantly sucked dry. When everyone saw this, they couldn't help but take a few steps back. In their hearts, they were all complaining in unison. It was really too hot. The temperature was not low to begin with, and now that the old phoenix had done this, they couldn't stand it anymore. However, seeing this scene, the head of the Yao family smiled in his heart. This phoenix was really smart. The patriarch of the Yao family was extremely pleased with himself. He couldn't help but glance at the other 5 elders from the phoenix race, white tiger race, and dragon race from the corner of his eyes. If they were as proactive as Elder Qin, how great would that be? However, he naturally couldn't take the initiative to say this. In his words, the beast race were all proud. How could they be easily controlled by humans? But the truth was that the Yao family didn't have much money and couldn't afford to bleed. Therefore, he could only open the net and wait for these people to jump in. Quickly come to the internet. Hurry up and be his free hatchet man. The head of the Yao family was shouting in his heart, and the excitement on his face was almost impossible to hide. Old Man Ning, look at how Old Man Yao got his way. Not used to the pretentious look of the Yao family head, the Cheng family head complained to the Ning family head in a low voice with a look of disdain. Calm down. Let's just watch the battle. Who cares who did it? The master of the Ning family said calmly. In fact, he was well aware that no matter who helped the old man of the Yao family, they would not have a good end. At this moment, Elder Qin, who had transformed into his true form and soared in the sky a few times, was also almost done with his smugness. Then, it immediately released its own pressure, wanting to use this to trample these tiny snake-type beasts under its feet. Among beasts, sometimes, what was important was not strength, but the pressure of the bloodline. Among beasts of the same level, there was no doubt that the one with the noblest bloodline would win. If the difference between the two wasn't too big, the one with the noblest bloodline could rely on the suppression of the bloodline to win, even if it was weaker. Of course, the probability of this was only about 50%. However, this 50% was enough for the beasts with noble bloodlines. If the difference between the two was too great, the one with the noble bloodline might not be able to cause much damage to the other party, but it would still affect the other's heart. Moreover, with their background and status, there were not many beasts who dared to provoke them. Most of the time, many beast clans would give face to the 4 divine beast kings and not dare to offend them easily. Otherwise, those unlucky beasts would probably receive the revenge of the entire clan. None of the beast tribes could bear such a result. It's precisely because he knows this that Elder Qin doesn't take the snakes in front of him seriously. Moreover, he's used to being arrogant, so he sees these snakes as ants. Chapter 2287, Face Slapping 2. Under its pressure, many of the snakes revealed an indescribable painful expression. Cold sweat trickled down their bodies, and their bodies even trembled slightly. Seeing this, Elder Qin became more and more proud. However, after observing for a while, he gloomily discovered that although these snakes were afraid, they didn't retreat. This isn't right? It shouldn't be? This result was completely out of Elder Qin's expectations. Therefore, the impatient Elder Qin was somewhat unsettled and repeatedly increased his pressure. After a while, Elder Qin heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that the snakes finally showed fear. But the next second, it was dumbfounded again. That was because the giant red snake that had been looking at it coldly glanced at it disdainfully. Without saying a word, it protected the snakes under its wings. The red transparent film that protected the snakes stung Elder Qin's eyes. He was furious. How did the snake do it? He was actually not afraid of its pressure. In addition, was this a barrier? This was the first time it had seen a red barrier. Moreover, after the group of snakes had been gathered under the wings of the giant red snake, their expressions had clearly become more cheerful. This fact made it very unhappy. Damn it! I won't let you off. Elder Qin was furious. The consequences were severe. Everyone could only see a ball of fire pouncing towards the giant red snake. Then, the ball of fire and the giant red snake entangled together. Soon, the giant red snake was surrounded by the scorching flames. The giant red snake's voice could be heard from the flames from time to time. "Fuck! I'm so hot." Upon hearing this, everyone was speechless. They thought to themselves, it would be strange if they weren't hot. The Phoenix clan won with fire. This fire was their greatest trump card. If the temperature was normal, the Phoenix clan would not have been able to dominate the divine realm for so many years. With the mentality of watching a show, everyone felt a lot of sympathy for the giant red snake. On the other hand, the head of the Chung clan was truly worried about the huge red snake. After all, they had a very pleasant deal before. This snake had given him more face than Old Man Yao. Therefore, whether it was emotionally or rationally, he did not wish for these snakes to lose. Otherwise, wouldn't it be too easy for Old Man Yao? That was something he did not want to see. Therefore, he did not hesitate to curse the old witch to lose. Not long after this thought appeared in his mind, everyone saw countless fiery red meteors falling from the sky. This scene left everyone puzzled. It's broad daylight, why is there a meteor shower? With this doubt, everyone continued to watch the battle. At this moment, the great elder beside Lung Ruoxue tugged at her sleeve and could not help but ask, "The Phoenix clan's flame is very powerful. Will Xiaohua be all right? Can it withstand it?" Don't worry. Xiaohua will be fine." Lung Ruoxue gave First Elder a consoling look, and First Elder finally felt at ease. After that, everyone couldn't help but whisper to each other because the meteor shower was increasing in number, especially the area where the huge flame was the densest. From time to time, it would be accompanied by a few painful screams. Seeing this, everyone finally understood that the meteor shower had come from the flame. What was this situation? Thanks, everyone's curiosity was piqued, and they stared at the fire even more intently. After a long time, the people present saw that the huge flame in the sky had finally been extinguished. A huge white object fell from the sky and fell to the ground. Everyone's attention was immediately attracted. With one look, everyone couldn't help but gasp. Wasn't this a giant bird? Elder Qin? The bird was bald from head to toe. Its beautiful feathers that were burning with flames had long disappeared without a trace. However, the phoenix's appearance could still be seen. At this time, the phoenix's eyes were closed and it lay motionless on the ground. Such a scene stunned everyone present. For a long time, they couldn't react. Even the three families that were king divine beasts were stunned on the spot because they had received a big shock. By the time they reacted, the pitiful Elder Qin had already been seen by the people present. As for the giant red snake, it was still hovering in the sky, unscathed, showing off its might. Damn it! Xiaohe's eye-piercing action made the other elder of the Phoenix clan gnash his teeth in hatred. Although her relationship with Elder Qin wasn't that harmonious, she couldn't tolerate the fact that Elder Qin had disgraced the entire Phoenix clan. Therefore, without even thinking, she immediately rushed into the sky and confronted Lil Fire. "How dare you attack an elder of my Phoenix clan?" The elder of the Phoenix clan narrowed his phoenix eyes and said coldly, "Little Firebird, are you shooting after the horse? You're only saying this now that I've already made my move. Is there any use?" Lil Fire coldly said as it lightly glanced at the human-shaped phoenix in front of it. It was too lazy to even lift its eyelids. "Don't quibble, just wait for the revenge of my Phoenix clan." The Phoenix race's elder spoke in a vicious tone. After that, she turned to the four elders of the White Tiger race and Dragon race. "Why aren't you guys coming to help? Are you going to watch us four King Divine Beast clans get bullied?" Upon hearing these words and seeing how the Phoenix elder had once again elevated the matter to the level of their own race, the four elders from the White Tiger race and Dragon race who initially didn't want to step out could only brace themselves and step out from the crowd of spectators. They floated in midair beside the Phoenix elder. Seeing this, Fiery was dissatisfied. "Oh, you even found a helper?" Fiery said with a look of disdain. "You have more helpers than I do." The elder of the Phoenix tribe pointed at the group of snakes behind Xiaohua. That's true. However, they can't help much in a battle with you. Looks like you'll have to look for other helpers. Lil Fire shook his head as he muttered to himself. As soon as its voice fell, a snow-white kitten appeared beside Lil Fire. Don't be afraid, I'll be your helper. The little kitten said with a smirk. I can't ask for more. Seeing Azure, Fiery was happy. Originally, it wanted to borrow a few people from the woman, but it didn't expect Boss Song to actually volunteer to fight. Who was it afraid of? When the crowd saw the kitten that was not even the size of an adult's palm, they could not help but laugh, especially the 5 King Divine Beast clan elders, who laughed the loudest. However, Song couldn't be bothered to even roll his eyes. The patriarch of the Yao family was also very excited. With a teleport, he also ran to the side of the 5 elders to join in the fun. If he didn't stand out now, what was he waiting for? It would not be good for the Yao family if they were to anger these divine beasts. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.